Ta-da! Welcome everyone to Loaded Mag NUFC. As you can see, I'm on my lonesome for now. The main man should be joining us at some point during the show. But welcome everyone to Loaded Mag NUFC away days, the final one before the World Cup. I don't know about you guys, but I do not want this Premier League season to stop right now. I want the ball to keep rolling. And of course, we kept rolling last night. A fantastic, or was it a fantastic victory against Palace on penalties? It was certainly fantastic for this man who was outstanding in his penalty shootout. And Nick Pope was certainly the main man who stole the show with regards to that. But one or two interesting facts that went round. That was the allocation of the Palace fans. Lots of Newcastle fans were really, really disappointed with that allocation. I'm sure D from back of the nest won't be happy with that allocation of Palace fans on a Wednesday evening to support their team in the cup. But that certainly didn't go down well. But we're in the hat. And tonight is the draw for the next round of the Carabao Cup. So after the game, Man United, Villa, check it out. And what you'll find is that there's not a lot of London teams left in there. Charlton are flying the flag for London, which is a surprising one. So it could well, or very unlikely, be a trip to London anytime soon in the Carabao Cup. But let's see what we get drawn. But we're in the hat, and that's all that matters. For Newcastle, but absolutely buzzing to be in the cup, and it gives us a chance to potentially fight for a trophy this season, which I think, let's face it, we all want more than anything. Great to have so many in the chat already. Paul Gallant's in there. We've got the mods in the house, Jano, Simon Rudd, Lisa, flying the flag as always. Great to have you in there and showing your support. We've got Jamie. Jamie, don't worry. We are live. You don't need to fall asleep. I know you've been up since 4 a.m. Great to have you in there. And of course, our new sponsor, Russ, is in the house. Welcome, along with many others. And look, get your questions in for our guest. And our guest is just waiting. He's waiting to come on. And I'm really pleased to have him on with us tonight, that's for sure. And we've got another guest that's just having some technical issues that will come and join us a little bit later on in the show. But we're going to preview the Chelsea game, as always. A massive, massive game. It's going to be an interesting one. St. James's Park, under the lights, 5:30 kickoff. You know, are we in a position to really go for it? Are we in a position where we're favourites? I don't know what you think. Get your points in the chat, and I'll get them up in just a second. But as always, we always, when we're previewing the game, we love the opposition's point of view. And it's absolutely a pleasure to have Carefree Lewis G, also part of Chelsea Fans TV, come and join us. So let's get him in now. How you doing, Lewis? How's things?
I'm good. As you guys already said earlier, out of the cup, probably out of the title race. And yeah, I am not looking forward to Saturday at all. But I appreciate you having me on. Big up everyone in the comments. And yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it. And some questions are already filtering through, which we'll come to in a second. But look, you touched on it. Let's touch on it really, really, really briefly. Last night, obviously, we talked about us beating Palace on penalties. You went to the Etihad, and obviously you got knocked out at the cup. You were there, weren't you? Were you there at the game?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it from a fan's point of view in the stadium? Was it as bad as what some made out it was?
In terms of the performance, our B team might have played better than our A team has done in about a month, really. That's probably the most optimistic I've come out of a Chelsea game since we beat AC Milan at the San Siro. I mean that. I don't care if we've won other games. That's probably been one of our better performances. City are better than us, better than everybody in the league, in my opinion. Even their B team, the way they move the ball, the passing lanes, the way they build up their play and their attacking lanes and everything like that, it's second to none. And even if it is a rotated side, you could see the gulf in class between the two teams. And I'm not annoyed at the result, really. I think the finishing could be better, but it never is good. I think we have one of the worst attacks in the league, even with rotation. And we just can't finish our dinner to save our lives. But in terms of the overall performance, I thought a lot of fringe players really showed themselves. And debatably, you could probably throw that same team out on Saturday and I'd have more confidence in our starting 11. But that's just the state of where we are right now.
Interesting. Any look, we'll get into kind of starting 11s and various other things as we move along. But are there any that you would suggest would be vying for a place in the starting lineup on Saturday after their performance at the Etihad?
Pulisic, like, he looked all right. I think he was good on the ball. Decision making needs to be a bit better, but with more game time, I think he'd be a bit quicker on the ball. Lewis Hall looked unbelievable, but I'd still put Cucurella in there. I just think that's our number 2 sorted. Brozier, because all of our strikers are so bad. It's like you might as well give Brozier a run out. At least he gives you the physical edge. At least the last questions of defenders. Other than that, Zakaria as well. Zakaria too. I think that would just be it from all the starters. But in terms of the attack, like, nobody deserves a spot. You could put anybody in there.
Interesting. Now, look, we've had a chat and we've spoken on the 12th man when we've been on with Dan, and like you've been so pessimistic about Chelsea and their performances. But just before we get into that, then you've had already a significant incident within the season already, because you started the season with Thomas Tuchel as manager, and he's left through various different media speculations, fallout with the owner, various other things, and now you plucked out Graham Potter from Brighton, and on the back of that, there was there's a question here from our sponsor Simon, and he's put, how do you rate Graham Potter's time at Chelsea so far? So what are your thoughts?
I think Potter's done the best he could do.
Right.
Like, the problem to me was never the manager. If you ask me, would I get rid of Potter now and bring Tuchel back? Yes, but that's no slight on Potter. I just think Tuchel got treated really unfairly by the ownership. But even in spite of that, like, I don't really have any bad feelings towards them either. I get it. I just don't think it was right the way they did it. In terms of Potter, though, there's been questionable lineups. There's been questionable decisions in game every now and then, and I think it's fair to criticize those moments. But in terms of the manager, is he the man to take Chelsea forward? I think a lot of fans are just bitter over the way Tuchel was treated, and I understand it, but Tuchel ain't here anymore, and we need to move on. Like, we're Chelsea. Personally, like, I've seen heartbreak before. We sacked Jose Mourinho in very similar circumstances after the first group stage in the Champions League in 2008. We did the same thing again in 2015. We sacked Ancelotti in the tunnel. We sacked Sarri, Conte, all these managers. We've seen heartbreak before. I'm not going to keep crying over Tuchel. Like, it's happened and we have to move on from it. The problem is the same thing that both those managers are dealing with, the players. Our squad is just not good enough. Our squad needs a massive rebuild. Even with Tuchel, it needed a massive rebuild. We said this early on the video that you'll see on Chelsea Fan TV later. 70-80% of the squad needs to be removed, and we need to just start again and rebuild. And Potter deserves the time to build his squad. And I'm not going to really judge him until then, unless Potter has us in 15th or 16th or something crazy like that. And I don't really expect that. We need to overhaul the attack. We've got a declining and aging midfield with no creativity in either front. Our defense is a bit more leaky because there's not an understanding, and I'll give the defense time on that. I think they're all quality. The goalkeepers, we don't have faith in either of them. So why am I expecting Potter to do a magic to do magic with us?
Mm.
Why am I expecting him to get us into the top 4? Why am I expecting us to win the Champions League or anything like that? It's not happening. It's not happening at all. So this season, it's just a write-off, really. Maybe go win the FA Cup if we can. That would look nice. If we finish top 4, fair play, Potter. Fair play, because I have no faith in that right now. But this season's just a write-off to me. We don't have to finish in the top 4 for everything to be okay and perfect, because to me, finishing in the top 4 might even make the squad look better than what they really are when we really need an overhaul and we need to just do it now. Being in the Champions League as well, you could say you need it to attract the best players.
Yeah.
What have we attracted in the last 5 years?
Well,
players that aren't good enough. So to me, it's like, I don't mind whether we finish top 4 or top 7. I want the standards to remain the same, and I would demand it in a season, but I have no belief in this squad that they can reach those standards. So for Potter, he's done the best that he can. The players are the problem for me.
You're absolutely. Yeah, I think you made a really good point in that. It can't all be put on Potter because there was issues there before he even came into the club, like you've said, and there's things that need to be changing there. And to be fair, some of the questions that are coming in kind of fit into that. So Russ has said, does Lewis think that there has to be maybe a rebuild a bit regarding Potter's appointment and maybe wanting his own players? Does he need to be getting his own players in and making his own stamp on the club? You've touched on certain players wanting to leave. Lisa's also put, question for Lewis, do you think Potter will be given a chance to bed in and make the changes needed? Will he be given time? So 2 interesting questions there for you.
For this one, I would be very surprised if he didn't get given the time. I think Potter's on like a 5-year contract or something like that, and Tuchel was going to be back the same way, but they fell out during the transfer window just because of poor communication. I think they had differing beliefs on where they wanted Chelsea to go. It is what it is. But new owners also have a habit of just bringing in their new managers. Like we saw with Chelsea before. Abramovich came in. He gave Ranieri a year, but he was still bringing in a new manager. So I'm not too surprised with that. But if they were to do anything rash with Potter, I think it would be suicidal from them personally, because Tuchel looked like the best manager that we've ever had since Prime Mourinho. Yeah. The amount of games that I saw where he coached victories and our players were just so brain dead that they just killed it off every single time. Like, if you sack Potter, it just shows player power is still in control of the club. It shows that the owners don't really have a clue, because we've been talking about a long-term project and backing a manager for the first time in ages. You don't sack a manager of Tuchel's quality just to get rid of another manager with under a year. I think Potter has to be given at least 2 years as a bare minimum to build a squad in his image, and you would also have to see vast improvements in that squad too. Like, if we don't improve within a year, maybe I'd understand it. But, like, we'd have to be in a very bad position to do it. But Potter will definitely be given the time. I would be very, very surprised if we didn't. What was the other question?
The other question was right next to it. I'll just bring it up right now. It said, do you think that they have to maybe rebuild a bit regarding Potter's appointment and maybe wanting his own player? So again, is it very similar in terms of does he need to rebuild in terms of signing players and moving players out? Now, on our preview on Chelsea Fans TV that we just did before we came on air here, you said that there needed to be a rebuild and there were certain players that needed to leave. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, like, it's more not even who leaves, it's who stays. For me, Reece James, give him whatever he wants. We've already got him on a 7-year deal. That's like the only player that I'm 100% like has to stay. Kovacic, he's up there, but I think he's questioning his future, so we can't even really guarantee him. The new signings, I'd give the season to at least see how they bed into the squad and the impact that they have before I make a full judgment. Silva, if he wants to stay for another year, I'd do that. even as rotation. I think he'd offer a lot in the dressing room, and he's still such an unbelievable defender, even if he is slowing down a little bit. I think you just need to manage his minutes well. Other than that, anybody wants to leave, you can go. You can go. The whole midfield needs revamping. Kante and Jorginho aren't agreeing on contract terms. They both want way more money than what the club's willing to offer. I wouldn't mind Jorginho as a bench option. Kante, I also wouldn't mind, but he's so injury prone. And for the length of contract that he wants, the terms that he wants, I would rather we just let Kante leave and go to another club and retire peacefully, because it's pointless keeping him here. Wing backs, Cucurella I'd keep. Chilwell depends on the injuries, but I think he's good depth. And I think he's been harshly treated this season for someone who's still coming back from an ACL. The defense, I wouldn't get rid of anybody personally. I think they're all doing a great job. Even the likes of Koulibaly, they look a bit suspect right now, but I think that's just an adaptation to a different league. Okay. The attack, they could all go. Everyone except Sterling. I'd keep Roja. He looks like such a good talent. I'd start him even more over the attackers that we have.
What about this guy? What about this guy? Aubameyang?
I don't mind Aubameyang. Like, I think he's been not treated poorly. I think people have come in and expected him to just make goals for himself, and Aubameyang ain't that guy. Like, he's got better link-up play than I think people give him credit for, but he's more just a poacher. He's a player that you feed and he scores. And our creators are so bad. Like, Mason Mount's creativity from open play is probably the most overrated in the league. It's not good enough at all. Overhits everything. Kai Havertz, at least Mount shows some creativity. Havertz doesn't show a single thing, and the sooner he leaves, the better, personally. I genuinely think this is one of the worst signings we've ever made in recent history. Wow. Ziyech wants to go. You can leave. That's fine. I think he's just been put in the wrong system, so I'm not even too fussed about it with him. Pulisic never gets given a fair chance, so I can't really make a full judgment on him. But if he wanted to leave, he could.
We were linked with him. Like, we were heavily linked with him, and there was talk that we could potentially get him on loan in the summer. It didn't materialise because Chelsea didn't want to release him. I think Chelsea didn't want to release him as a club because of the ownership and the connection they have, the American ownership and the connection they have. But I think Tuchel wanted him to go and wasn't going to give him chances. What is Pulisic like as a player? Would he be a player that you think would benefit Newcastle and would improve Newcastle?
I don't even know, because we just don't give him a fair opportunity. And this is my problem. Like, there's a lot of criticism towards Pulisic. And I get you want to see him come on and have impact and stuff like that. But when there was a problem in the summer where all of our forwards wanted to leave, the likes of Pulisic and Ziyech, I understood. When it was Werner, I was like, go, just leave, please, just leave. Cho needed to go on loan. He's been overdue a loan for years. And when it's the likes of Pulisic and Ziyech, yeah, they're demotivated. Yeah, they want to leave the club. I do not blame them. Because if I was sitting there as a first-team player on the bench every week, watching Mount and Havertz stink up the pitch for 90 minutes every week, and then he only comes on and gets 10, 15 minutes at the end, I wouldn't be motivated either. I wouldn't care, because what if I score? I'm still going to be on the bench next week. If I do nothing, I'm still going to be on the bench next week. Pulisic has been well overdue just a consistent run of games. And that's when we can judge him, because before that, he's been just in and out with injuries. And before, like, he makes chances. I think he's still our highest chance creator per 90 out of all of our attackers, despite all of his limited game time. And we've seen what he's like at his best when he's at full confidence. That Project Restart Pulisic I've seen genuinely look like the second reincarnation of Hazard. And I believe there is a quality player in there. I'm not going to say I put my house on it, but I believe there's a quality player in there. He just doesn't get given the opportunities. And to me, at least, it's like, at least over Havertz, he's our worst forward and he plays every game. And Pulisic, at the very least, deserves a start over him, over the likes of Mount. Even Sterling. Sterling hasn't been good enough since Potter joined. And Pulisic still barely gets starts. So I think he'd be a good player for you guys. I think he's slept on a lot, but he's even slept on by our own management. So I can't prop him too much.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair, and we're interested in it. We were interested in it. I still think there might even be a slight interest in there going into January, but there's an array of attacking midfielders now that I think we're looking at quite closely. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. That's for sure. But look, I want to look at the game in a little bit of detail. You know, from the conversations we've had, you're not confident about this game at St. James's Park going into Saturday. Tell us why you're not confident about the game Saturday.
Because we're crap. If I just put it into 3 words, that's it. You guys are unbelievable. You guys have been tearing teams apart. You're unbeaten at home, right?
Yeah, this season. Yeah, but the only game we've lost is that 98th minute last minute winner at Anfield, which should never have been because the game
That's your
was
only
done
loss
2
this
minutes
season.
before. It's the only loss this season. That's it. We haven't lost.
Bro, we are not winning this game. We are not winning this game. You lot we said it on the last video as well, you have grown way faster than I expected you lot to. I thought you would be maybe top 7 competitors, and I still think that's probably still your target. I think you will still want to grow up a little bit slowly, because if you aim for top 4 and you get 6th or 7th, I don't think you'd be annoyed with that either. But in terms of squad, you've been unbelievable this season. You guys are 100% top 4 contenders. We don't look like a top 4 side. We barely look like a top 6 side right now. Our record at St. James's Park wasn't even good when we were good, let alone now.
Yeah,
and I don't know where we get a win from. Like, maybe we get a penalty and then just sit deep for 70 minutes or something. I don't know, but I don't see any realistic way that we get a win, because you guys are going to press us for 90 minutes and our midfield gets absolutely dunked on in transition. Our defense is making mistakes, at least 1 or 2 a game. And as soon as we get the ball forward, our attack is so pants, they just give the ball away immediately afterwards. I'm not confident. I'm only going up for the night out. Maybe we get a draw or something. I'm not there for the game. Like, that's just customary. Go there, deal with it for 2 hours and leave. But I have zero confidence. If you don't even draw, I'd be disappointed as a Newcastle fan, because we're not good.
Yeah, well, look, we talked about this on the 12th man, and a lot of people thought, like, well, I say a lot of people, Lawless, thought that you were trying to heap the pressure on Newcastle, but I can tell by what you're saying, you genuinely feel this. You genuinely feel that Newcastle are there, and we're going into this game as favourites. And look, I imagine so many in the chat will probably feel the same. You know, St. James's Park is.
I feel like I've given them a lot more confidence too, and you know what? Big up you guys, because you lot absolutely deserve it. I said at the start of the season I didn't have faith in this squad. I thought top 4, if we even get that, fair enough. Just rebuild and move on. Now, I'm not even expecting that. I don't think we're better than Newcastle. I don't think we're better than United right now. Especially not better than Arsenal and City. Right now, the only big 6 club that we're coming close to is Liverpool. And they're 2 points behind us. And they've been so bad this season. There's no faith, man. And I want to be the guy who has faith in my squad, but I'm at the point where I'm just going to say we can win. Just because I can say it, and that's it. I've got no belief.
No, that's fair enough. Look, from our point of view, like I say, we are a fortress right now, and we are really making it hard for teams to get anything, get a shot on goal, let alone score a goal, let alone win a game. And I just think that going into this game, you know, the game before the World Cup, under the lights at St. James's Park, we're really going to kind of we're really going to go for it, and we're really going to kind of try and make our mark and stamp our authority on the game. So it's going to be an interesting one. And just before I just come to the tactics, I want to be able to talk tactics with you. I don't know how long you've got with us, and
I'll go about 10, 15. That's
okay. Perfect. So what I'll do, we'll come to a couple of questions. There's a couple of quick fire questions that I'll fire at you. And then we'll go to the tactics board and have a look. Yeah, a question from JKG says, question for the Chelsea lad, Lewis. Would they rather Howe or Potter? Now, obviously, Howe has been on fire for us this season and had a really good season, a good year, should I say, for Newcastle. Are you still happy with Potter at the moment, or would you take Howe if you had the choice?
Oh yeah. I'd still stick with Potter. I think it's way too early to judge him.
Yeah.
I think what's that sound? I think Eddie Howe's still done a brilliant job for you guys, and it's no slander on his name or anything like that. But I still think Potter's a great choice. Like, Potter is still the manager I would have gone for if Tuchel had been sacked. He would have been one of my top 3. So I don't really look at him in a bad light. I just think he's been thrown straight to the wolves. You do this big of a turnaround either end of last season or the end of this season. And even Brighton would look at it from a better perspective if they did that. It's just all been massively rushed, which is why I don't blame him for the mess we're in.
No, I think that's more than fair in your assessment of Potter and Howe. I think, obviously, of course, from a Newcastle perspective, we would want Howe because of the job that he's done. I'm a massive fan of Howe. I respect everything that he's done at the club. So yeah, I would go with that 100%. I think we've touched on this already. Simon said, how do you rate Potter's time at Chelsea so far? You've obviously, I think you referred to it as being a bit of a mixed bag.
Mixed bag, but not his fault. Not his fault.
Exactly. I think that's more than kind of respectful with regards to that. It's got Lewis. Russ has put, is Lewis scared for this weekend? I think you've already touched on.
No, not scared. Well. Accepted. I have accepted it. So when we get battered, I ain't gonna be too pissed about it.
Okay, fair enough. We'll definitely get that reaction and get Lewis on, or I'll jump on your channel, Lewis, and we'll talk about it.
Definitely.
Interesting one from Gary. Gary's put, what's Lewis's thoughts on Newcastle joining the big boys? Obviously, you've given us a lot of praise and respect, and we appreciate that with regards to Newcastle and how they've done that season. But what are your thoughts of Newcastle with our new ownership, now potentially joining what was a top 6 and potentially making it a top 7 in terms of challenging you boys for those top positions? What are your thoughts about that as a Chelsea fan?
I like it. Like, it's always good to have more variety in the league. Like, it's just someone to stop City, for goodness sake, because it ain't going to be us right now. Yeah, like, I've wanted to see Newcastle be saved from Mike Ashley for a while. I can't lie. I like the club. I like the ground. Even when you guys were under the Mike Ashley era, when you guys were winning, or when you guys were in a good position, it was still a fortress. It was still very loud. I remember the first time I went there was when you lot beat us 3-0 on the last day. Unbelievable atmosphere. So I've always wanted to see Newcastle do well. So even now, if they're top 6, if they're probably going to be way better than us in the next few years, it is what it is. And I like the competition too. That's just what the Premier League is all about. It does feel a bit weird that we've gone from being the oil money club to now you guys the oil money club. But that's also why I don't really see it like, oh, you just bought all your success. We're like the OGs at it. I just kind of wish we still had our old guy, but we moved. It is what it is.
Fair play. Fair play. Look, I think there's maybe one other question that's come in with regards to... Hold on 1 second. I think there was another question. I can't see it right now, but I'll come back to it because I've started. But at this point now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the tactics board up because I want you to have a look. I asked Nick, who's from That Chelsea podcast, he's having some problems with his laptop, so he's struggling to get on right now. But what he did, he gave me a predicted 11. So I'll put it on the screen right now. Would you change any of that starting 11? I'm assuming you can see it. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? That 11 that you put out there. Does that seem about right in what you think could be out there on Saturday evening?
To be fair, Asby didn't start the last game, so I could see him start there.
What would you change?
I'd take Havertz off first and foremost.
Okay, who would you put in? Loftus-Cheek?
Nah, not even Ruben. I'm thinking because is it the lineup I want or the one I think Potter's gonna play?
Maybe the one that you think Potter's going to play.
Okay, well, okay. Okay, that might be the correct lineup then. Yeah, this is just not what I would do, but I think that's the lineup you'd probably see. Koulibaly played the full 90, so he probably would be benched. Would we not do a back? Nah, midfield would get torn apart. Kovacic, Jorginho, Havertz in the. Oh, that midfield is atrocious. Yeah, sorry, just for my own sanity, I'd take Havertz out, put Zakaria in, and move Kovacic further forward. Just for my own sanity.
So, Kovacic's further forward, Havertz out.
Havertz out and Zakaria.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that would be what I would do. Yeah, that it'd be either Mount or Havertz on the right. It's just not a good enough lineup in general. But yeah, I think that's what I would do. That's what I would do.
Okay, so now we've got your lineup rather than what you think maybe Potter might put together. Where do you think? And look, we obviously talked about the game at St James's Park. Where do you think you could win the game on Saturday? In terms of where are your areas where you could hurt Newcastle potentially?
All depends on our creativity, and we're just so devoid of it that I can't even try and talk that into existence. Like, there's so many games where it would all change with just a bit more creativity. Like the Arsenal game, Havertz makes a very easy cutback in the first 10 minutes. We're 1-0 up because I would be so shocked if Aubameyang misses that chance. That doesn't happen. We get battered for 90 minutes and lose. Even 1-0, to be honest, is a bit gracious for us. It should have been about 3 or 4. Maybe in midfield, but I don't see that. Maybe in transition, maybe that might be something that we could do well with, but again, we have to take our chances. Set pieces we suck at defensively and offensively. I think we're one of the worst teams in the league in terms of XG, so can't even rely on that. Jorginho penalty or transition. That's it. Jorginho penalty or transition. Other than that, we're done out.
Right, interesting. Okay, so it is a very defensive lineup. Looking at your Chelsea team, there's Zakaria, Jorginho, Kovacic. It is quite a defensive lineup. You are kind of expecting the likes of Aubameyang and Sterling to kind of win you the game, with Mount potentially getting himself forward. It's going to be really interesting, particularly if he picks that lineup. If he does have Havertz scored the winning goal against us at Stamford Bridge last time.
His fans have just been living off that ever since.
Yeah, honestly, like we were absolutely distraught. Dan Burn had an amazing game the last time. And it was only that one thing where it just went over his head. He managed to get in. Great touch, great finish, fair play to him. But other than that, Dan Burn kind of had him in his pocket for the vast majority of that game. It was really, really, really unlucky. So I think Havertz being in there could be a potential danger for Newcastle purely for that reason. But from my perspective, from a Newcastle perspective, this is the team that I've gone for. And not a lot's changed in terms of the team that we normally put out. It's normally, the likes of, Burns been playing at left back for quite a while. Botman and Shaw are clearly the centre back pairing. Trippier in, Pope in goal. I've gone with Longstaff in there because he's played so well. He's man of the match against Southampton. The only real change there is Joe Linton. I've gone with Joe Linton on the left. Some may question why I've not gone with ASM.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's surprising.
I don't know whether people in the chat agree with this, but for the bits that I've watched at the weekend, sorry, not the weekend, last night, but certainly even against Southampton at the weekend as well. ASM, he doesn't look fit. he doesn't look fit at this moment in time. And so for me, I think he needs to bed himself into the game and play minutes off the bench. I don't think he's ready to start, not in the magnitude of this type of game, in my opinion. So I just believe, from my perspective, that he needs that he needs time to build his fitness back up. You know,
There is hope. There is hope.
Yeah,
Small hope.
definitely. Geordie Toon for Life is said, and I agree with him. ASM is still rusty. He is. He's just not back to that fitness yet. Lisa Mould in the chat has just said he's just not. ASM is just not back to form.
You sure you wouldn't fancy him against Asby though? Because Asby, I love him, but he's respectfully so finished.
You know what? I would. I 100% agree with that. I do think he could get the better of him. Gary Milligan's just put, for me, ASM's not up to speed. I don't believe he's up to speed yet. But if you, I think Appy is a good defensive player, but I think the speed he really struggles with, the speed and the power that players run at him with. I think if you had ASM at 65, 70 minutes coming on for either Willock or
that's not right,
and putting it there, and at 60, 70 minutes coming on fresh as a daisy, potentially with the opportunity to win us the game or solidify the game and going at Appy at that point, I think that's the key to Newcastle potentially winning the game. Because I think under the lights at St.
You might not be like 2-0 up by then. It won't even be necessary, bro. Maybe be bullying at that point.
Maybe, and you know what, Lewis, I hope you're right. But I just think at that point it's the best time to bring him onto the pitch at 60, 70 minutes. But for me, I'd be putting Joe Linton there, Willock in midfield, who was brilliant there. Willock can also play on the left, and Willock's got the pace to really go happy as well. But Joe Linton scored there against Aston Villa. Played well in that position. I think he'll stay there. But what you'll find maybe in the game is that Joe Linton and Willock will interchange. So you'll see them like this at times in the game, and then you'll see Joe Linton pop back out into this position and Willock fill in there, because they are very interchangeable in terms of where they play in those positions. So it's an interesting one. I do believe, though, that this side is where we can potentially win the game. The pace and the power of these two boys coming down this side. Can Mount do the job coming in here to look after things? Can Kovacic manage this area here to manage these guys this side? I do think that this game could potentially be won, because I think Chelsea will be focused so much on Almiron and stopping him that they might not focus too much on this area. And we might see some joy coming from here. But that's just my kind of opinion on it. You've obviously got Bruno in that midfield that will look to dictate the play, look to get on the ball and get forward and press, certainly as a number 8. Wilson, can he occupy Chalobah and Silva at the back here? He's on form right now, obviously just been picked to the World Cup, which is an amazing achievement for him considering his injury record recently. We've got players that can really hurt Chelsea, and that's where I'm looking at potentially that left-hand side that could win the game, with the likes of Wilson getting in on the act. So that's kind of where I see that situation with Chelsea. It's going to be an interesting one, and obviously you've given us your perspective, Lewis, on the Chelsea lineup. So that's going to be one certainly to keep an eye on from this point. But look, just before you go, Lewis, I want to get this man in because I think it's time for some stats. And like magic,
Evening, Lewis.
Big up, my guy. Hope you're good.
Great to have you on, Keith. Absolute pleasure as always, and the intro to match as well. I hope you've been well. How's your week?
Yeah, spot on. Bit nervy last night, but we came through the storm, should we say? Yeah.
Definitely. So before we let Lewis go, I know the Chelsea that Chelsea podcast are just trying to get on now with regards to their technical issues. But just before we let Lewis go, just run through some stats for us with regards to the game, and then we'll get Lewis's prediction before he heads out.
No problem. I've got loads of stats here, some head-to-head stats, some stats on the managers, the players, and some stats, general stats. Get ready, strapped in, Pete, because it's going to be bumpy, this.
That's not good.
Newcastle's all-time record against Chelsea in this fixture, played each other 171 times, won 54, drawn 39, lost 78, so slightly more in favour there for Chelsea, definitely. Head-to-head record in the Premier League, played 54, won 13, drawn 12, and lost 29. So again, more in favour of Chelsea there. But the head-to-head at St James's, played 27, won 12, drawn 6, and lost 9. So there's an advantage there to Newcastle. Chelsea have scored more goals in this fixture as well. 83 goals compared to 47 for Newcastle in the Premier League.
However, to that. Don't worry, we ain't adding to that.
There's been a couple. I think there's been a couple of hammer-ins in there. However, Newcastle have got more goals in this fixture at St James's. Slight advantage, 34 goals compared to 31 to Chelsea. But Chelsea have got the better defensive record in the fixture in the Premier League as well. 26 clean sheets compared to 10 for Newcastle. Newcastle as well, in recent years, not a good record in this fixture. Only won 2 out of 14 against Chelsea, 2 wins, 1 draw, and 11 defeats. Newcastle are winless in the last 4 against Chelsea as well over the last couple of seasons, losing 4 in a row. And they've also lost 3 of the last 4 at St James's, so there's some records to put right there. Moving on to the managers, Eddie Howe, his record again in games against Chelsea, 13, he's won 4, he's drawn 1, and he's lost 8. So he's gotten an average of a point a game against Chelsea. And Graham Potter's record against Newcastle United in games is managed 7, he's won 2, drawn 4, and lost 1. Slightly better point average there than Eddie Howe. Callum Wilson's got 1 and 8, the England international now. And Raheem Sterling's the top scorer for Chelsea this season so far with 5 goals. And he's also got a really good record against Newcastle when he's played for Man City. 9 goals in 18 games against Newcastle. And also Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has a great goal scoring record against Newcastle. The man that should have played for Newcastle. He likes them so much. He's scored all these goals. He's scored 6 in 9 when he was at Arsenal against Newcastle, and he's also assisted 3 goals as well against Newcastle, which is his best record against any side in English football.
That's mad. Wait, was Aubameyang linked with you guys?
Yeah, before he went to Arsenal, before he went to Dortmund from Saint Etienne, we were willing to pay. I think we were willing to pay 13 million for him, but Dortmund were willing to pay 17, 18.
Yeah,
so
I get Dortmund at the time, Newcastle at the time.
Mike Ashley refused to up the bid, but he was happy to play for. He wanted to come to us. He ended up going to Dortmund, and obviously his career kicked off from there.
Mike Ashley, bro, virus, man, absolutely.
Honestly,
one of those great what if moments, and he could have been another Wijnaldum. We could have at least got a season out of him.
Mm-hmm. You could have got like 50 million off him with the right season.
Oh, definitely. It's absolute madness.
That is a madness. I didn't even know that.
No, it's crazy. Honestly, absolutely crazy. But look, Keith, fantastic stats as always. You always.
I'm only halfway through, Pete. Nice little half time there. Goalkeepers, Nick Pope's got 6 clean sheets in the Premier League, which was discussed in previous weeks, compared to Kepa. Areza Balaga, he's got 3 clean sheets, but it might be Mendy who might be between the sticks for Chelsea. We don't know.
Will be.
Possibly Mendy. Kevin De Bruyne, only Kevin De Bruyne fought with and Andreas Pereira have created more chances in the Premier League for their teammates than Kieran Trippier. So Kevin De Bruyne with 45, Andreas Pereira with 34, and Kieran Trippier with 32, creating chances for teammates.
Mad.
Newcastle, that we've discussed before, are now unbeaten in 10, including the Carling Cup yesterday. Chelsea have conceded more goals in the Premier League this season than Newcastle. So it's 16. Chelsea have conceded 11 to Newcastle. And Chelsea have also scored fewer goals in the Premier League than Newcastle. Chelsea have got 17. Newcastle have got 28 there as well, which sort of evens things up a little bit, doesn't it?
I did not know it was that little that Chelsea had scored.
Bro, our attack sucks. It's the worst in the top 10, let alone top 6.
I'm surprised, and I say this because I know he'll probably come good on Saturday, but Aubameyang hasn't really settled at Chelsea yet. I mean, he got the 1 goal, but I thought he might have got a goal against Arsenal, but he didn't. The law of the X and everything.
Blame Havertz for that, and that's the problem. Our creativity just sucks. We couldn't create a Word document, let alone an actual chance in open play. Is what it is.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Trust me, you don't think I overrate it when I talk about how bad our attack is. They suck. Everyone except Sterling and Aubameyang and Brozier, they suck. All of them.
But this is the thing. Like, I think a lot of people think that when you've mentioned about Newcastle, when you talk about Chelsea, you think that people think, oh, he's kind of playing it a certain way. But that's genuinely what you can see.
I'm not playing it down. We are bad. If we win, you lot need to have some serious looks at what went wrong.
Over the years, I don't think of Chelsea with great attackers. I mean, obviously Drogba, an absolute legend. Hasselbank way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But I just don't think in recent years they've tried a number of people. They've tried like Morata and players like that, and they just don't. The number 9 shirt seems to be a curse to Chelsea. They don't seem to get the right strikers. The goals seem to come from the midfield.
Mm-hmm. It's just all spread around across the whole squad. Like, if we want to, I know we haven't had good attacks in ages. I'm telling you, this attack's worse than all of them. This is genuinely the worst attack. It lacks any sort of cohesion. It literally 8 touch, and the worst part is Aubameyang didn't play badly. He just didn't get fed. Like, everyone was saying he was terrible against his former club. Nah, if he got that 1 cutback and he scored, it's a different game.
Yeah.
But we have no creativity, no cohesion. And that's the problem. That's why it's the worst of the lot.
I watched that game on Saturday, the Chelsea-Arsenal game, and I did not realise he only had 8 touches. Jordan for life, brilliant for bringing that in. And he's put in there, Costa was a handful. He was when he was playing for your boys. But Keith, have you got any stats to finish us off?
That was it, rounded off. And Diego Costa, what a legend he was, basically. He was like the ultimate striker that used to just mess teams up and mess players' heads up, didn't he?
Lewis, he was your last great striker, wasn't he, Diego Costa?
Yeah, I will give an honourable mention to Giroud. I always loved Giroud, but he was too old. He was too old. In terms of like elite, Diego Costa, man. I wish we could even get someone close to him. That's why I've got so many stocks in Brozier right now. I see a raw Diego Costa right there if he can get a bit more of an IQ and experience up. But yeah, we don't have anything like that right now. Absolutely nothing.
Interesting. But yeah, look, I'm gonna let you go at this point because look, Lewis, you spent longer than you intended to, and I really appreciate that.
Anytime, bro. And also to the guys in the comments, I can't lie, it's been like the nicest comment section I've ever come across. So all you man, big up yourselves. You lot have been unbelievable tonight.
Lewis, we say it every week, and you know what? You're not the only one to say that from other fans of other clubs. Everyone always appreciates the comments in the chat. Our comments, I'm not just saying it for the sake of it. They are the best. They're the most respectful. They're the most knowledgeable. They ask good questions about opposition clubs. They're just genuine fans of football, as well as, and more importantly, from Newcastle. And they, more importantly, respect and appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to come onto our channel.
They could have piled on me because I've come in with minus confidence, let alone zero confidence.
But no, there's that mutual respect there, and we always have that in our channel, which we pride ourselves on. We really, really appreciate. But look, just before you go, 2 things I want you to do, Lewis. Tell us what your prediction score is going to be on Saturday evening, and secondly, tell us where we can find you for all of your previews, your channel, and all your information.
Yeah, guys, Carefree Lewis G on all socials, and also Chelsea Fan TV as well. We're running 2 separate channels, so check them both out. For the Chelsea game, I'm going to say 1-0 Jorginho penalty, because that's the only optimistic result I can give. And yeah, if I think logically, we're shipping at least 3 or 4 on Saturday. But guys, honestly, it's been such a great time on here. Hope to be on again soon. Big up all you guys. Keith, Pete, everyone in the comments. Big up yourselves. It's genuinely been a great time. I appreciate all you guys.
Thank you, my man. Look, I'll let you go. You have a great evening. And
take care, my guys. Have a good night. Love every time.
Have a good one. You take care. Brilliant to have Lewis on. I knew his time was limited, but he spent even longer than he intended to. But such a great guy. If you've not seen him when he's on our panel for 12th Man, he really knows his stuff. And as he's done for our preview, and he's put our channel in his intro, we're going to do the same as well. So Chelsea Fan TV, a massive Chelsea channel, 160,000+ subscribers. They're a big channel that he's a part of. And obviously Carefree Lewis G. Check him out. We've tagged him in our tweets for tonight's show. So go and show your support for him as well. And he'll be doing a review of the game. He goes to every game. So you might even see him around St. James's Park on Saturday evening. But he's gone for a cheeky 1-0 Jorginho, but I think deep down he's expecting a trounce, and you know what? I'll take that all day long. I'm sure you would as well, Keith.
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming, Chelsea. Much like Arsenal over the years as well, especially into the Ashley years, a fixture I would dread, to be honest. Even at St. James's, the last 7 out of 8 fixtures, or 7 of the last 8 fixtures have been Chelsea wins. And Newcastle, if you think of the 90s in particular, Pete, in the early 2000s, Newcastle really used to give Chelsea a good game at St. James's, and the games at Stamford Bridge were quite tight. Sometimes Newcastle had come away with a point, in a couple of those games as well. So, but over particularly the Ashley years, it was a dread, that fixture. We're starting to get it a bit more competitive now. We're getting closer. If you remember that game last season at Stamford Bridge, we felt hard done to, coming away with a 1-0 win at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think it took me about 3 weeks to get over that, maybe even longer. I think I even went into this season still angry about that result.
Yeah, I wasn't a happy man. But one thing I said to my friend, who I spoke to the day or two later, look, when's the last time that Newcastle went to Stamford Bridge and actually took it to Chelsea, took it to a top team? And we've seen more of that in the earlier fixtures this season against Man City and a few of the other big games, obviously, aren't we? We're seeing some of the old Newcastle that we used to know and love in the early 2000s come back, aren't we? And be competitive against teams.
Definitely. Look, Will in the chat has put Demba Ba, great striker for both teams, definitely. And you could throw Loic Remy in there. Did well for both teams. Both players went to Chelsea, sat on the bench, but every time they went on, they had good moments.
Made an influence. I remember Demba Ba getting a winner for Chelsea in the FA Cup against United in a replay, I think, in one year in the FA Cup. It might have been the year they won it, so I certainly were winning something.
Definitely. Right. I'm gonna try something out because he's been patiently waiting. Nick, his camera's not working, unfortunately, but I want to see if I can try and hear him to get his thoughts, because we're really, really keen to get Nick's thoughts from that Chelsea pod on. So I'm going to put it on and hopefully we maybe hear him. Can you hear us, Nick?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me? Please see you can hear me. Right.
We can. We
to
can.
everyone, to everyone on the stream, I'll just try and explain. I literally got ready for this about 7 o'clock, and it took till about 8 o'clock just to get to Twitter and into StreamYard. I mean, Lewis was doing such a good job, and I was happy to take a back seat. But it's a pleasure to be on, and I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. But I'm presuming, obviously, you guys be going close to an hour, but you've more than done fine in my absence.
No, absolutely fine. And look, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Nick. Thank you for being so patient with your laptop and your lack of camera and all the rest of it. I know we've been trading messages whilst the show's been on, and you've been kind of like, trying to bang around and get things working. But look, I want to get your kind of thoughts on the game, really. I mean, just in general, because we've talked about with Lewis beforehand, the change with Tuchel into Potter. What are your thoughts with Potter? With what he's done in his role so far at Chelsea, and what do you think is going to be likely to be happening in terms of a change in tactic or personnel on Saturday in the build up to the game?
Right. Okay. So let's go for part one of that question first. On Potter, yeah, it's been pretty interesting with Graham Potter. Obviously, I know yesterday you asked me to try and send a team in for the game, and I said predicting a Graham Potter 11 is a pretty thankless task. He does keep us guessing, although with injuries at the moment, I think it's probably slightly easier to pick a settled team. As for how he's doing so far, I mean, the last couple of weeks have probably just, brought a lot of Chelsea fans back down to earth, and the mood has probably soured quite dramatically. There was, when he came in those first few weeks, obviously beating Milan's twice in the space of a week, there was quite a lot of good feeling and positivity. And then I think getting battered at Brighton and losing in the manner we did to Arsenal, the mood has just soured somewhat, which is again understandable. As Chelsea, you're only ever 1 or 2 games really away from any sort of crisis at this club. So yeah, it's an interesting time. We just sort of something we've got to get used to with Potter, and just hope that he is the man, and only time will tell for that. And yeah, as for I think the second part of how we'll set up again, I think I know obviously I've this backstage before, and I think the team you had on your graphic is I think pretty similar or same to the one I sent you. I think the same team I sent you guys earlier. So again, I think that's probably something similar to how we line up. Obviously, I guess I said my only doubt was, if Jorginho's recovered from his foot injury, we kept him out of the Carabao Cup tie, and if Mateo Kovacic, how fit he is, because obviously we're trying to manage him, because it does seem he's got injury, concerns, and trying to manage him before the World Cup.
Okay, interesting. So, look, I asked Lewis the same question, so I'll ask you to see if there's anything different. I asked Lewis, where does he think you win the game? And he was very pessimistic. He was kind of like, there's nowhere kind of we're going to win the game. The team's playing poor. We're struggling all over the shop. From your perspective, is there anywhere where you think that you've been watching, there's a chink of hope there that you could potentially win the game in one position or down one flank compared to the other?
Honestly, no. It's probably a set piece or something, isn't it? Like it's. I don't mean to be basic, but it's. Having watched Chelsea again suffer similar last year, losing their wing backs. When Chelsea lose Reece James and Ben Chilwell, they are a completely different side, and they struggle going forward. Factor in that Newcastle are actually good this season. Like, I think in general, this standard of Premier League this season is probably one of the worst I can remember in terms of the actual games and how good teams are. But I say in this league, there's 3 good teams in Manchester City, Arsenal, and yourselves, and the rest, including us, Liverpool, United, Spurs, are all pretty distinctly average. So look, obviously, Aubameyang, if he starts, he can score goals. Will he get enough touches? Will he get the chances to score goals? That is another thing. Mason Mount is a talented player. Will he do something? Raheem Sterling, there are goals there. He can do something. Kai Havertz, if he plays. There's obviously goals and there's obviously talent in this team. But again, this is Chelsea at St James's Park, where we don't even have a good record against you guys anyway. I know we've won at St James's Park the last 2 times, albeit, last year you had Steve Bruce. The year before it was COVID and behind closed doors, so put just a massive asterisk mark by that. But I mean, I've seen Chelsea teams going for the title lose at St James's Park. So this game, has always been a struggle. Our players will just crumble in the St James's Park atmosphere, and we'll probably likely lose 2 or 3-0. But in terms of where we can get you, there is obviously some talent in that attack. It's just a question of whether they fire, and they have not fired this season, really.
That's could be interesting. Like Sterling, for me, is the one that I would be worried about. But actually thinking about what he's actually done at St James's Park, we do tend to keep him quite quiet at St James's Park. We do tend to defend quite well and quite deep against him. So whether that will be the same again, that will be quite interesting. But look, Keith, I'll come to you on the Newcastle perspective, because we didn't get your thoughts before. This is the team that I've gone with, and I've gone with Joe Linton instead of Murphy or Alan Maximin, and I give the reasons that I didn't think he looked fully fit to play and start a game for Newcastle at this point. Is there anything you would disagree with that starting 11? And equally, where do you think Newcastle could potentially win the game against this setup of the Chelsea team?
Well, the first question, in terms of lineup, in terms of Alan Maximin, I agree with on that one. I just think it takes time to get the fitness back. He's been out for a while. He had quite obviously the hamstring issues and that. Coming back from that, I don't really want to rush him back too much. Maybe bring him on as a sub, but I certainly wouldn't start him off. I don't think we need it really. I mean, we didn't expect him back before the World Cup in anyway. So, agree with that. Joe Linton, Almiron, Willock as well. Willock getting the goal last week. I think it's a strong midfield there, or as strong as we can get it. As strong as we can get it, really. I wouldn't just seeing the fact I wouldn't put Shelby in. So I'm not. I think really maybe ASM as a sub, maybe Murphy as a sub, but I certainly wouldn't change that midfield. I think you've got the strongest midfield there. Botman and Shaw. You don't change a strong. Certainly, if you're not going to change an area, you're not going to change a strong defense.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. There's not a lot that you would kind of change at this point, because it is so strong and we've been playing so well. It's going to be really, really interesting. But for me, and look, Nick, I'll get your thoughts on this. I think we could potentially win the game here. Wilson against Chalobah. I don't know how well Chalobah's been playing, but he seems to be getting picked week in, week out. But I just think the physicality of Wilson, the movement in and behind, could be too much for him. I think Silva is an experienced player. I think that will be a really, really interesting battle, but maybe the pace is too much for Silva. I don't know. I'm just giving suggestions out here of where I think potentially Newcastle could win the game. How has Chalobah been for you in that centre back role?
To be honest, Trevor Chalobah has probably been, by accident, twice, probably one of the most positive stories to come out of Chelsea.
Wow. Okay.
Last season, players were at the Euros. They were coming back late. He got that chance in pre-season. He impressed. He played in the Super Cup, did well. But even then, there was still talk of him getting loaned out. Eventually, he didn't get loaned out. He stayed. He's fairly impressive in his debut season for Chelsea. Started both our cup finals against Liverpool. Didn't put a foot wrong in those. Scored in the Champions League against Juventus. Was trusted in some of the Champions League games. And then again this season, it looked kind of similar. He didn't really get a look in at the start of the season, and then Wesley Fofana gets injured. He comes in and he's played every game since, and he's maybe struggled a bit, in recent weeks, and this Chelsea team has struggled a bit more in recent weeks. But in general, Trevor Chalobah has actually probably been one of the finds for Chelsea, and probably, not that it's a very high bar, but probably Chelsea's second best defender this season after Thiago Silva. He's a very talented lad. Again, I know obviously I don't really know how much you boys care about international football, but Trevor Chalobah is one who I think could maybe consider himself slightly unlucky not to get a call up for England or, for the World Cup with Gareth Southgate, albeit he's not really been included in squads before, and it would seem quite a rogue choice to take him to a World Cup. But I think he's certainly one who you're looking at who can potentially be a future England international there. No, he's been impressive, and again, he's cost us, nothing come through the academy, so he's been a very good find, contributing to our success. And yeah, he's good, but obviously, we will see. We're coming up against a good Newcastle side that will put us under a lot of pressure. And this Chelsea side can be good at. This Chelsea side can be good at. The midfield is good, but it can be good at as well. And put Callum Wilson in behind. There's a good chance he'll finish. obviously Miguel Almiron is someone I'm quite fearful of. But to be fair, I could be fearful of pretty much any of your team. Kieran Trippier banging a free kick past Mendy wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, no, going back to your question, Trevor Chalobah has been good, and say next to Thiago Silva in a back four, given what we've seen of Kalidou Koulibaly this season, I'd say, and with Fofana injured, Silva Chalobah is probably the best we can hope for right now in terms of a pairing for a back four.
Interesting. It's interesting you said about Chalobah and referred to the England setup, because we kind of feel the same with Dan Burn. We feel that Dan Burn at left back and even centre back was quite unlucky to not make the England squad. He's been one of our best. He's been probably one of the best performing defenders in the Premier League since even before we signed him in January. And it's one of those that, although he's not been in and around the squad like you've mentioned, Nick, it's one of them where actually he would have been more than deserving of getting a spot in that squad in particular. So it's an interesting situation there, but it's really interesting that you said it kind of fell by chance that he ended up just coming into the team and doing really well. We had the same with Joe Linton, Keith, didn't we? After in that Norwich game last season, we had Clark sent off after like 10 minutes. We then had to rejig the team. Joe Linton ended up playing centre midfield, and the rest is history. And
he started to show glimpses of that as well in the Man United game as well. He just grew into it more in the 1-1 at Man United, and just from there, really, wasn't it the best comeback story in Newcastle's history?
Yeah. It really is, because I remember we was talking when the takeover happened, and we thought that he was going to be one of the first out the door. We genuinely thought that was going to be the case, and for the fact that he's not, and he's really turned it around, is amazing to see. But interesting about the tactics and how we're going to set up, and how Chelsea are going to set up on Sunday. We always like to see and have the opposition view of how you think you're going to win the game, or how potentially you're going to set up, because for us on away days and those in the chat, we like to see if that comes to fruition. And 9 times out of 10, there's always little pockets of things that happen in the game that we pick out from away days that actually happens, that we then talk about sort of on the review. So it'll be interesting, Nick, from your perspective and ours, whether those things come to fruition or not. So we'll keep an eye on that. But look, there's a number of questions here, and there's questions flying in. But first of all, look, Yano, I don't know what you're talking about here. He's put, Nick, we have been hoping that Pete and Daz, another member of Loaded Mag, would adopt the voice only for ages. Where's this disrespect coming from? Yano, you're one of our mods. Come on, man. I'm not that bad. Surely I might need a shave here and there. I'm not that bad. The disrespect's flying in there, but there's some really, really good questions, to be fair, with regards to the game on Sunday. Tom Dixon said, question, who do you think Chelsea's main threat will be for Newcastle? And who do you think Newcastle's main threat will be for, or main threat will be for Newcastle? So who do you think the one player is to look out for Chelsea, Nick, and one player that you're worried about in particular for Newcastle?
Right. Well, I mean, I think for Chelsea, and I think from what I gathered from the stats read, but Aubameyang actually has quite a decent record against Arsenal. That was what I gathered from the stats read, which again, impressive that for him. So I guess by that, and because I'm a real believer in players just do really well against certain teams, you can just kind of bank on them to score for whatever reason. Let's say Aubameyang, even if he probably is realistically going to get marked out of the game and get subbed off at 60 minutes for Armando Broja with us 1 or 2-0 down. But let's say Aubameyang. As for you guys, I'm just going to say Miguel Almiron. Like, he's in my FPL side. I finally bought him in the last 2 weeks, and he's delivered the goods. So he's probably going to deliver against me as well at the weekend. I'd say Almiron. I think Bruno Guimaraes, he's someone in that midfield can pull the strings. In general, there's a lot of danger men in that Newcastle side. And the reality is, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I'd quite like to have your Newcastle team ahead of quite a few of our Chelsea players, which I guess just shows how far you guys have come in space for year with the new ownership and all the signings you made. But yeah, I was Almiron, and then Callum Wilson. Again, I don't know what Callum Wilson's stats are against us, but I know he scored against us for Bournemouth back in the day. So who knows? He may well. I don't know if he scored against for Newcastle against us yet, but it's one of those where he is a striker. Give him a chance. There's a likelihood he'll put it away, and he's also probably riding off a bit of adrenaline buzz that he's made the World Cup squad as well. So he'll be more than up for it as well. So I know I've given you more than one, but yeah, I could literally go through probably 3 or 4 of your whole team.
No, that's absolutely fine. I'm interested in some of the players that you've mentioned. I'm not surprised by some of them, for sure. But a really good question there. I'm going to go back to original question that was asked to Lewis, and I'll ask you the same question. It's from JKG G. Question for the Chelsea obviously fan. Would they rather Howe or Potter?
Ooh, this is a tricky one because again, and you guys will know better than me, and admit we've not. And I wouldn't expect us to, have as bad a start as you did. But you guys actually had quite a pretty slow start under Eddie Howe when he first came in last year, didn't you? You had a slow start, and there was still quite a lot of talk in the media at the time, like, why have you got relegated with Bournemouth? Why are you getting him to bring Newcastle up? Obviously, seeing what he's done in the space of 12 months and seeing how both sides' fortunes have flipped is quite scary. I mean, at the same time, I was quite impressed with what I saw with Graham Potter at Brighton. It's a tricky one. Obviously, again, there's been some bits of Potter that I've not liked, but then I've also seen him, dominate AC Milan twice in the Champions League group stages. It's a tricky one. I mean, Eddie Howe's got Newcastle third in the league, and I don't think anyone saw that at the start of the season. I mean, I'm pleased for Eddie Howe because, again, he was a player manager. I think after Bournemouth got relegated, that there's a narrative kind of thought that, oh, actually, maybe he's not all, he's not all that. I think people kind of then started to belittle that achievement he did have of keeping Bournemouth up in the Premier League for those seasons before that, and then seeing what he's done at Newcastle. And not only that, but I think seeing how, from what I see, the mood around Newcastle, St James's Park, the positivity he has brought as well, I think it's quite clear that there's probably a connection between you guys and him, which I think is always important to have as a football fan. And with Graham Potter, it's still very early days, but there's not really a connection yet. That can come in time. To be fair to him, he's not the most passionate bloke on the touchline. He is, a fairly maybe dull personality. But again, if he wins football matches, that's all that really matters. This is a really long answer to that question, and I'm kind of sitting on the fence. I don't know what Lewis said. I'll still say Potter just because I do think he actually, given what he was able to, not only Brighton, changing philosophy of their play to doing what they did, and he did get some impressive results, and he did have Brighton playing well. So I would say Potter just, but I am, very impressed with Eddie Howe. And look, hopefully, there's a lot of people saying, Eddie Howe getting a big job. Well, let's hope for you guys' sake, but Newcastle is that big job, and Newcastle just keep going and going to that next level. And Eddie Howe's a man to work his magic for you guys.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope he does, and we're fully behind him. That is for sure. A different question, aside from the game on Saturday, I'll come to you, Keith, with this, Newcastle related. Would you take City or Liverpool at home in the Cup and play full strength to get rid of them? Interesting question.
Probably take Liverpool. Dual win against Liverpool at St James's. You think how close that match was at Anfield. Yeah. Isak with the second one, which shouldn't have been chalked off. Referee giving them play until you win, play until you score right at the end. So, I've got to say Liverpool at Newcastle. I still think City, on the other podcast earlier, NUFC, as Mark McDonald said, City have got two really strong sides that they can field and still win, like they proved last night. And I tend to agree with that point. Yeah. So Liverpool at home.
Yeah, and Nick's just put in our private chat a really good point, is that Klopp tends to play his kids in the cup games. He doesn't tend to play the full strength team. So if we were at full strength against his kids, we would. I'm not even joking about this. I think we'd wipe the floor with them. Derby ended up taking them to penalties. If they played that same team, Newcastle would win. I've got no doubt about it. But I've got a funny feeling that if they pulled Newcastle out at St James's, they would pull some of the first teamers in, because I think he would know more than anything that we'd be there to turn them over. But we owe them. We owe Liverpool after the Anfield game.
It's been 7 years. It's been 7 years of hurt, Pete. 2015, 2-0. Wijnaldum 2 late goals. It's been too long. We've got to beat Liverpool.
Yeah, there'd be no better feeling than to destroy them. That is for sure. Well, 100%. I'd love it. Absolutely love it. Simon's put what happened to the away days tune. Ask Daz. Daz has come up with these little special surprise little things, and one of them was the new away days tune. So yeah, if you haven't watched it or you're late to the show, check it out. That is for sure. But it's interesting. It's good that we're talking about. Lots of talk about the cup draw and who we could get. Like, it's just brilliant that we can actually talk about that from a perspective that normally we go out in the first rounds or two, but we're still in it. Jordan Tinfel, I've put this question, Nick, to Lewis, but I'll put this question to you because we didn't get a chance to ask him. What are your thoughts on Rory Jennings? Sometimes I think he knows his stuff. Other times I think he's talking out of his. I won't repeat that word, but yeah, I don't know Rory Jennings, but are you aware of him? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm quite aware of him because he said Erling Haaland would flop. I don't know if you've seen that infamous video clip on Twitter that's got clipped on Fair Teams. He said they got asked to make predictions, and he said Haaland would flop. So, look, a broken clock's right twice a day, isn't it? No, I don't know the guy. I have no, real strong opinion. I know he's said some controversial things in the past. He also now, given where he's in the media, is obviously going to probably try and say some controversial stuff for clicks, etc. I don't know the bloke. I couldn't really speak to his character or what he's like. I think if you're looking, and again, odd if you're a Newcastle fan, but anyway, if you are looking for Chelsea content creator, there's probably a lot of other good ones out there, like Lewis, who you had on earlier. There's other good Chelsea content creators who are perhaps less extreme, less controversial, less clickbait or whatever intended. But yeah, sorry Geordie Toonfluff, I can't give you like a proper strong answer on that one, but because as I say, I don't really know the guy, but yeah.
No, I respect that. Definitely. I don't know who he is at all. Keith, I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, I know his stuff. He's sometimes on the kickoff with True Geordie and that, and he's got his own channel. He's a bit like Goldbridge. He's sort of broke through, and he's on TalkSport as well. Like, he'll sometimes do like the Friday night show. I mean, sometimes I've heard some of his stuff and it's quite clear. And he's in the past he's spoke well about Newcastle before Newcastle started becoming more of a threat.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yano put this when Lewis left. He put, right, he's gone. What do you really think? In terms of the Newcastle scoring and what we think I do think we'll win. We'll get to predictions in a second. I do think we'll win on Saturday. I'm confident. Why wouldn't we be? Because of the type of form that we're in. And, Lewis and Nick have not been complimentary really to Chelsea, which kind of feeds in to our confidence. That is for sure. There are a number of different points and various different questions that are coming out, but there's one here for you, Nick. It says from Tom Dixon. Welcome, Tom, to the chat. Great to have you on. Question: where do you think Chelsea will finish in the league this season?
Yeah, I know Tom's got a couple on Chelsea and Newcastle, so because I've seen him in the chat, so I'll just answer both here. I think Chelsea. I think at the start of the season on our podcast, I said Chelsea would get top 4, but I also said at the time it felt very tense at Chelsea. It felt like, we were almost breaching. We were not that far away from crisis, and crisis did happen with Thomas Tuchel going. As I said earlier, I look at the Premier League. I don't think the quality of it is that high this year. We're 7th right now. I think we could probably come realistically, again, anywhere between 3rd and 7th, probably. Again, I know you boys are in 3rd. And going on to Tom's question, which again, I might sound ludicrous to you guys. I think if you keep players fit, I genuinely think you boys could get Champions League football this season from what I've watched. If you keep players fit, because I don't know how many players you've got away of the World Cup, but you're not playing twice a week. You've just got the Premier League games.
Yeah.
deal with. And what I've seen of Newcastle, you've drawn with City, you've gone to Spurs away and won, you've gone to Old Trafford and drawn. You've only lost one game this season. That was Liverpool in injury time. I won't bring that up because that's probably quite a painful memory for you boys. But whenever I've watched Newcastle, I'm impressed. And genuinely, given what I've seen this season, Newcastle are certainly as good, if not better, than Chelsea, United, Spurs, etc. So I think you can certainly get top four. Obviously, it will just depend, if injuries, I don't know what your squad depth is like, but at worst, I think you should certainly be targeting some form of European football. But given how you started, I think Champions League football is a strong possibility for you. And as for Chelsea, I'd say anywhere between 4th and 7th, which I realise is very vague and not, nailing something down. But I don't think there's much difference between us, United, Spurs this season. It's just ultimately which one is less worse come the end of the season.
Yeah, I think you've made a really good point. I think they're genuine points. I had an article published on BBC Sport today with regards. I was asked the question: are Newcastle more likely to make the Champions League than Chelsea? And from from that point, my point is that I felt like we could finish above Chelsea. But I felt that both teams might not finish in the Champions League just because Newcastle, although we've got a big squad, if you look at the quality of player from one team to the other, we don't have those standout players. And we've had a little dip with Palace and Bournemouth. I don't know if we're going to have a dip again. If we don't, then I think we're well in with a chance of getting Champions League football. But equally, and I think Daz on our loaded chat made a really good point, and I 100% agree with, is that it's that feeling of not putting too much pressure on the team. We're riding a wave right now. We're really enjoying things with regards to Newcastle, and we're enjoying being in the position that we are, where we're winning games, we're playing good football. But it seems like there's so many other factors, and I mentioned this to Daz. I said the media are putting so much pressure on us right now. Let them do that, which is why I put us Newcastle finishing maybe 5th or 6th, and maybe Chelsea in and around that. Because I don't want to put pressure on Newcastle. I want Newcastle to go out and be free and really go out and express themselves and do what they've been doing at the beginning of the season. I don't want to put pressure on and say, right, we demand 4th in the table because we're 3rd right now. We demand Champions League football. We're 14 games in. Let's just enjoy what we're doing right now. And if we're in April and we're still in with a shout of Champions League football, then it's a different conversation. For me. Chelsea, it's a little bit different. I think there's an expectancy there because of what you've been doing over the last 20, 25 years. So there's an expectancy there. But for us, it's slightly different. So I thought Dash's point on our loaded chat was really, really good. And I 100% agree with that. But this is why I put in the article that I think we'd finish around 5th or 6th. I don't think we'd maybe just miss out on Champions League football because nobody would have expected us to be in the position we are right now. And we're really enjoying things the way it is. So that was just a little something on the back of that, and I think that fed into a little something that you talked about, Nick, which I agree with for sure. Would you agree with that, Keith? Would you agree with it? Would you have the same notion of that?
Absolutely. It's so refreshing to sort of get to the point. I mean, I've been doing a lot of looking back in the last week or so to see, comparing. You'll see remember the other day where I put in the chat about being 20 points better off than we were at this point last season, where I think we're only just about got our first win against Burnley 1-0 around about this time. It reminds me as well of the 2001-2002 season under Sir Bobby, where we'd had a couple of seasons in mid-table, and all of a sudden out of nowhere we got Robert, we got Bellamy in. And we're launched up the table, and we're quietly going about our business, getting maybe the odd defeat here and there, but we kept on coming back, bouncing back. Weren't involved in Europe, out in the Intertoto early that season, and kept on coming back really, and were sort of like top 2, Christmas and New Year, and we ended up in the top 4 again. There's nothing to say that Newcastle couldn't do the same this season, although I have to say that I am expecting teams like Liverpool to put a run together, because I know they can after the World Cup. There will be it's very, very early days. There's a lot of football to be played here. We kind of
Yeah.
just expect Liverpool to be bad all season. We kind of expect Chelsea to be bad all season. They will put runs together. United as well. Are United gonna, there's 3 teams there who at least one of them will put a run together. But if Newcastle, for instance, were to finish 5th or 6th, that'd be amazing. Considering where we were this time last year.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
Can I just add to that, though? Sorry, what I will say is, I know you mentioned you expect Liverpool, us, and United to run together, and obviously I do hear that. But also, there does come a point where 13, 14 games into the season where none of those sides have actually shown any sign of doing that. So there does become a point when does it actually realise actually that might not happen? Again, what could be wrong? Liverpool, they've made light work of the Champions League. They've had a couple of wins recently, maybe, who knows? But again, they lost at Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks ago, or whatever it is. So it does feel for you guys, and I know, I'm looking at the table now. You're 27 points from 14 games.
Yeah.
Top 4 on average probably gets you 70 odd points. And again, this is talking from someone who's spent far too long looking at Premier League tables and working out calculations of points over the last 4 or 5 years. But you're probably you've got 24 games left. If you get another 43, 44 points, you've got 70 points. That could easily be enough for Champions League football. But I guess for you guys, it's turning those draws into wins, because I've just looked. You've 6 draws from 14 games. If you've got a couple of them, it looks a bit different. But yeah, no, I think you boys just dream. It's what being a football fan is. You don't have any expectation. Just enjoy the ride. You probably never thought it would happen this quickly either. You probably thought like it would get better, but you didn't think it would happen as quick as it's happened right now. So just enjoy it. I mean, honestly, I think aside from probably being an Arsenal or Man City fan, being a Newcastle fan is probably the third most fun team to be a supporter of right now in the Premier League. So just enjoy it. We'll just see what happens, because if you can do that, then that'll be some credit. And again, Newcastle in the Champions League, that'll be something special, playing the likes of Real Madrid potentially at St James's.
Definitely. And Daz gave his opinion earlier, and he said he can secretly hear the Champions League music everywhere he goes.
Yeah. He has a question for you. I've got a question for you. Would you take... I'll let the Champions League music play.
It's like Daz is in the house. He's playing the music. He's giving us the feels. I've got to stop that right now. He's giving us too much hope. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Daz. Appreciate it. Sorry, Keith.
I was just going to ask, when you were talking there before, obviously, about Newcastle, and you were saying that Chelsea could finish between 3rd and 7th. Would you take qualification now, right? So I don't know how bad Chelsea might be, if they might have a couple of bad results, but would you take 7th place if it guaranteed the Conference League qualification and Chelsea winning the Conference League to add another trophy to Chelsea's European trophies that they've won?
See, I've said this, but if we're not going to get top 4, I don't want it to be like a close scrap. I don't want to be stressing about it. I don't want Europa League, because we've done that. We have, we say we've won it all, but then they invented this new competition and we've not had the opportunity to play in it. So yes, if you offered me 7th and we win that, absolutely, I will take that. Add another trophy, tick that one off.
Because Jose won it last year. He was the first to win it. Now, I think Jose got a tattoo, didn't he, for it?
Yeah, no, exactly. It'd be nice. It would be nice to win that. Obviously, we'll kind of just show how far we've fallen, given last season we were playing a Champions League quarterfinal at Real Madrid, being the defending champions. But yes, I mean, if we're not to get top 4, I would most certainly take the Conference League, and then with the guarantee of winning that, I would absolutely take that, because it's another trophy.
Definitely. Yeah, Daz is at it with the old Champions League music playing in the background, getting us all excited as always. But look, there's a few really good questions. One from Jamie, and he's asked it can be asked, and it's a great question. Question for you, Nick. Which players from Newcastle would you think would get in to the Chelsea team?
Can you get that graphic up from earlier so I can just probably list all 11 or whatever? No, well, let's go right. Yeah, in current form, we'll go Nick Pope in goal. Okay. We've got Reece James injured, so yes, I'm taking Kieran Trippier in a heartbeat.
All right.
we've got Silva and Chalobah I was quite keen on, but again, Botman, again, admittedly, I can't say I've watched loads of Newcastle, but I know he was like, that was quite a
You can't
market
have that,
signing
with
for you
I'm
guys.
sorry. You can't have
Burn, as good as he is, I shall leave because I've got to have faith in Cucurella for now. We'll leave Longstaff. Nothing against him, but we'll leave him. We'll take Bruno Guimaraes, absolutely in a heartbeat. Yes, please. Yes, please. Joe Willock will leave for now because I reckon you put him in our Chelsea team. We don't really need on him. I'm kind of wary of getting too far forward because I feel if I touch your attackers, they'll just turn to rubbish if they join us. It's kind of a common trend. Again,
I'm going to ask
Wilson,
you.
we'll take Wilson. I mean, I think in Joe Linton, obviously, I think they're not quite the same, but we've got someone who works hard and does a lot for the team in Mason Mount in that position. So we'll leave him, and then it's Almiron or Sterling. And I guess in current format, I would say Almiron. Again, it's asking if it's longer term, there's probably less. But in current form, I would probably take a lot of your players over us right now.
Well, I mean, Almiron plays on the right, which in your formation that you've set up there, like Mount's on the right. Would you?
Right, of course, I'm literally
Almiron over Mount.
Right, okay. Well, no. So but I would have probably in current form I would have Almiron over Sterling. So we'll see. We'll see how it works. But yeah, no. And I guess in general, going up, that's probably a testament to the recruitment and the job Newcastle have done since getting this takeover. That they've assembled a squad. But I'm kind of looking at it, I'm thinking that's probably better than us. And in the space of 12 months, you've gone from battling relegation to going for the Champions League, and you've not spent money stupidly. You've not gone for loads of marquee signings. You made some smart signings, and it's worked really well. But no, I think it's testament that Newcastle side is strong, and I guess we'll just see, for your sake, I guess how long it stays together, because it would be quite nice for that side to stay together for a bit.
No, fair play.
Sorry, I should say I do have quite a lot of love for Newcastle because one of my best mates is a Newcastle fan, so I kind of know the pain he has suffered as a Newcastle fan. So I am quite pleased to see you guys doing as well as you are. So there's actually no animosity, and I'm quite a fan of Newcastle. I've got a soft spot and a lot of love for Newcastle. So I am pleased to see him doing well, which again might seem odd from an opposition fan to say, but I don't really view you as a rival. It's all fun and games right now. So, but yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And like I say, I think some of the players that you've mentioned, I would agree with, definitely, 100%. But it really, really interesting. It's always good to hear an opposition fan's point of view of who they would take from the current Newcastle United squad. Some other points in here and some other questions, but I'll come over with the points. Russ said, happy with Maddison's call up. Everyone raving about how good he was against the Scouse Mackhams, against Everton. Look, I'll be honest with you. From a Newcastle perspective, I'm gutted that he got called up, but from an England perspective, I'm buzzing that he got called up. And the reason why is because him being called up to England just adds the money on to the potential fee that we could get, whether it's in January or the summer. Because I think we'll go for him, whether it's in the January or the summer anyway. That's just my perspective, but that's just from me. But I want to get your points on that. But before I do that, someone's back from his Avon calls. Here he is.
How you doing, guys? You okay?
How you doing, my man?
Hi, Chris.
Good, mate. All good. Gusted, I missed the first part of the show, so apologies for that. I had a few duties I had to attend to. But yeah, how is everyone? Everyone okay?
All good. Nice to meet you, mate.
All good. Yeah, we've got Nick. Nick's had some problems with his camera and his technical difficulties, which we know full well about, Chris.
Oh,
we have them ourselves every week. So, it's great to have Nick on. But yeah, you can come into this question right now because I've just put the question was from Russ, one of our sponsors. Happy with Maddison's call up. Everyone's raving about him. I've said it's good thing from an England point of view, bad thing from Newcastle because it adds the money's on. Keith, from your perspective, what are your thoughts?
I think there's been a lot of speculation about players coming and players joining, and there's no cash guarantee that Maddison's going to come. So I'm sort of going short term at this stage and thinking I've got my England head on. And really, the stats don't lie. He's got to be in that team on form for England. He gives England a better chance. He gives them another option. If he if he's meant to join Newcastle, he'll join Newcastle in the new year or next, whenever he can. And it'll be fantastic when he does join. And if we've got to pay an extra little bit of money to get him in, then great. I think we've discussed it previously, or it's been discussed on one or two of the other channels, about if Newcastle could get him out of Leicester, because I think Leicester still owes some money over Perez, don't they? Really, so they could do a bit of a deal there where they sort of like knock a bit of money off that, and for that deal to go through, and it would be great for that to happen. But if he comes to Newcastle, then that would be great. But at the minute, I'm just going short term, and I'm just thinking England. Let's see if England can get to the quarterfinals, knockout stages with Maddison in the team, within the squad. We've got a better chance too.
Definitely. Chris, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I totally take your point, Pete, about the fact that, it could potentially add the value, but then I look at it the other way as well and think it could actually decrease his value in many ways, because is he going to score? Is he going to score? I'm saying score because I've just seen Villa have scored. That's why I said score. Is he going to play? Is he going to get the minutes? And for me, I think that would decrease his value, because he's been called up to the squads, and if he's not getting picked, Newcastle could then turn around and go, well, it's not going to add to his value, is it? And if anything, they could turn around and be a bit like, well, he wasn't good enough for England's 11, so why are you boosting him up and saying he's this fantastic player? Because I don't actually think he'll get many minutes for England, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it was a reluctant call up. It kind of reminds me of the Ivan Toney situation. He got called up, never really played it. So it's a reluctant call up into the squad. It'll be kind of a last minute situation, but Nick's just put in the private chat a cup opening up for you boys. It really is.
Yeah.
All the top boys at this moment in time. Man United 1-0 down at Old Trafford. Ollie Watkins is the goal scorer. I've just seen the goal. Jesus Christ. Harry Maguire. Oh dear. Absolutely shocking. I'm worried about England. I've got to be honest. It is a horrendous defending.
Potentially, Pete. I mean, not to turn it into an England show. Hang on, it's 1-1.
Oh, hold on a second. Daz and Gary on the point, Jordan Team for Life on the button. It's all changed.
Jeez.
But still, that defending was horrific, and I do worry about that. But
I was just going to say, Pete. What I find a bit worrying is England potentially, starting with 4 at the back, and you could argue that they've got 2 centre backs in Maguire and Stones, who I would assume would be the first choice centre backs. Stones isn't getting his game for City, and Harry Maguire's only just come back into the team, and he looks like he hasn't played for years, because he's just making mistakes week in, week out. So what does that? Yeah, that doesn't give us hope, does it, going forward? Because it's just a team not playing well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's all changed. Anthony Martial is just quick fire reply early in the second half, and he got his equaliser to the frustration of us all. Doug the Toon put keep roll. All the stats are getting rewritten, and it gives me a chubby on. Oh my god, we didn't need to know that, Doug for the Toon. But yeah, fair play to you. For your comments on that. But yeah, honestly, if you haven't watched the show, if you're late joining it, Keith's stats were on point as always. Brilliant stats with regards to the Newcastle Chelsea game at the weekend. So definitely give them a look in. That is for sure. Really interesting fact. I think Alan anticipated, because he put this out earlier, that you were going to be joining us, Chris. But he put Pete and Chris after Chelsea. I don't know if you're aware, we would already have played 5 of the top 10 as the Premier League stands now away. Wow. 15 games. Wow, that is interesting. That's a really, really interesting stat there, and Alan's always on the button with these kind of points that he brings in. But that's an interesting one. That's great for us in the second.
And also as well in the new year, just after the World Cup when we restart, Arsenal away, an awful fixture for Newcastle. Really, traditionally that's an awful fixture. To get that out of the way
Mm,
and into the new year.
definitely. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. That's going to be a great fixture. Can't wait for that one. We owe them one at the Emirates, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Tom Dixon says for Nick, question: what do you prefer, staying in Europe in the Champions League or focusing in the Premier League for Chelsea? Great question from Tom.
Well, this season, I'll say staying in Europe, because ultimately, what's the point of qualifying for what's the point of qualifying for trying to qualify for Champions League if you're then just going to take going out and then just repeat the cycle? If you're in the Champions League, you might as well try and win it. And I would rather us. I mean, not that I think it would affect us that much, but I'd rather us try and stay in Europe and focus in Premier League, because we're not going for a Premier League title. We're not in a title race, and after 4 or 5 years, I can't really be bothered to have the energy to care about a top 4 race. If we get top 4, great. If we don't, we don't. We'll suffer the consequences, and we've not been good enough. But give me a run in Europe, and I mean, we'll see. We've got Dortmund in the next round of the Champions League, which is a decent draw. So we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, I'd say staying in Europe. You try and qualify for the Champions League, so you can go on these runs in Europe. So it doesn't really seem to me much point to just kind of sack it off and then go in Premier League and repeat the cycle the following year.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. I think if we were in that position, in fact, I'll ask you the question, boys. If we were in that position of playing European football, what would you rather? Would you rather stay in Europe or focus on the Premier League if it was this time next year? Well, Keith.
We've had
Keith's
it
like me.
before, haven't we? We've had it before, though, in some
Yeah,
respects, haven't we?
yeah.
If you remember when we finished 5th, the following season we didn't have a good season at all. Where we didn't strengthen with Anita, and we're in the Europa League. That was the only place we strengthened, but we still got the quarterfinals, where we were really the edge of a post. We could have been into the semis. So we had a good run in Europe that year. And there's the thing about when you're in Europe, especially for Newcastle, there was only one time in 15 years that we're in Europe to this point. It's, I think, a cup run in Europe, really. Because you never know when it's going to come around next. Once you're in it, you don't know how far you're going to take. And the last major honour Newcastle won was the Fairs Cup back in '69.
Yeah.
Again, just for you boys, just think of what Rangers did in that Europa League run last year. I know their Scottish League title hopes kind of suffered a bit, but that Europa League run was incredible to watch, even as a neutral, watching that run and seeing the scenes at Ibrox as they got to a final. That's kind of what it's all about. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Chris, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can see the argument for both sides, to be honest. Everyone wants to do well in the league, and because we've had so many years of not doing well in the league, it'd be nice to kind of get back up there and cement our place up there. However, on the other hand, to have a good cup run and to get in Europe and then stay in Europe consistently, it's really important, isn't it? Certainly for revenue. Even take aside, the fact that it's European football and we haven't had it for years, and we, home and away and all things like that. You can't beat a good European tie. I think purely for the revenue and in terms of us building as a club, it's massive. The European football is huge. So yeah, I think I would side with European football, but it is nice to brag. I mean, sitting here at the moment in third, we're all laughing, we're all absolutely loving it. So to finish as high up the league as we possibly can, is the main aim. But equally, I do see why the focus should be on Europe. I do understand why.
No, that's I think that's fair enough. I think that's a fair point. I'd be the same. I think as what's already been said, I think I'd want to focus on Europe because it allows you the opportunity to get into Europe again.
Yeah.
If you're in that position, and look, we've had it on the 12th man with Lawless. Lawless keeps banging on about the fact that they've still got the best chance of getting Europe because they're in the Europa Conference and they can win it and they can get back into Europe again. And he keeps banging on about it, but they keep getting knocked out of cup games and they keep losing Premier League games. But he keeps banging on about it, and fair play to him, because they've put themselves in the position to be in that position in order to be considered from a West Ham point of view a viable option in Europe. But one player that's not been talked about, Nick, and I'll come to you with this one. Will put Chelsea fan in the chat. Welcome tonight, Will. But how much do Chelsea miss Conte? Now, Lewis mentioned earlier on in the show that he was kind of like, Conte just needs to leave, get him out. He's an injury prone. He needs to finish his career elsewhere. From your perspective, do you share the same view? Do you just want Conte gone? Or because I still remember Conte as this all-action mixed midfielder, this ball breaker, breaks up the play, fantastic, midfielder. Is that what you see him as a Chelsea player, or is that mindset changed?
To answer Will's question, how much do Chelsea miss Kante? A fully fit N'Golo Kante, yes, Chelsea miss. But a fully fit N'Golo Kante is not something Chelsea have had for a long time now. So I kind of am thinking, how much do we actually really miss the guy? He's, in terms of his importance to that Chelsea midfield, it's probably lessened over time. Obviously, he didn't start the FA Cup final last year, if I'm correct. I think it was Kovacic and Jorginho, and Kante maybe came on 60-man mark. A fully fit N'Golo Kante. For N'Golo Kante, we saw at his peak of his powers in that Champions League run 2021. Of course, Chelsea would miss. Any team in the world would miss. He is not that same player, unfortunately. He has had injury after injury. Chelsea have managed him pretty horrendously, rushing him back time and time again. And we face the consequences of poor mismanagement. I think it's best, like it probably is with a lot of these with some of these Chelsea players, to move on. And it's not because N'Golo Kante is not good enough. It's because he's just not available enough. And there's no point having someone around who is probably not available enough. Realistically, probably at the end of the season, it is probably best that he parts ways. It's a great shame because I think N'Golo Kante is probably one of the best central midfielders I've ever seen play for Chelsea. He has been ridiculously good. And if you look at all the success Chelsea had, he has been at the heart of that. Premier League title win, Champions League run. He has been absolutely incredible, but he's been here a long time now. This Chelsea squad in general probably needs a refresh, as maybe players who have stayed here a bit too long anyway. Kante's not one of those, but it's one of those, what's the point of keeping a player around who's not fit? As I said, he got injured in our second game of the season, and we're not going to see him till February, March at the earliest next, in the new year. And then we've lost a large chunk of the season. Again, we'll probably have to manage him after that. How much will he play? A brilliant midfielder, one of the best midfielders I think the Premier League's ever seen, one of the best midfielders Chelsea have ever had, but time has caught up to him, and it's unfortunate. It's just the way it is. I think, N'Golo Kante has been a miss in some ways, but Chelsea being where they are is not down to having no N'Golo Kante, because they've not had much of N'Golo Kante for the last few years in general, really.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Would you share those opinions with Conte? Chris, have you seen enough of him to see maybe a bit of a decline, obviously with the injuries that he suffered, or do you still see the player that he was at Leicester and Chelsea when he first signed?
I think Nick makes a great point, and obviously Nick watches Chelsea week in, week out, so he'd be far more qualified than me to say, but I think if a fully fit N'Golo Kante, and Nick's right, any club in the world would miss him, but we don't see him all that often, do we? Like I still sometimes, think to myself, like I can't remember the last time N'Golo Kante was playing 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row. Now Nick's spoken about it, because he has been a very bit part player. I remember Thomas Tuchel saying at one point, when N'Golo Kante was out, that they really missed him and stuff like that. And I think because of what makes it more difficult for him as well, because he's all action, he's box to box, he's all over the pitch, and people often refer to him as like the 12th man, don't they? If you lose that, all energy play from him, then obviously, it's not really the same player, is it? That's what brought Leicester to the successes they had, purely for the way he was playing. That's why he got the big move to Chelsea, and then he made a good start at Chelsea, from what I remember. It's 2-1 Villa, by the way.
Back-to-back league.
Yeah, that's right. Villa have just scored, by the way.
They're all coming in. Villa 2-1 up. Wow.
Ashley Young crossed into the... Oh, my God. Ashley Young crossed into the box. And who was it at the back post? There's somebody at the back post. Dallo wasn't even following him. Dallo's put it in his own net. Oh. So bad.
So
So bad.
Lisa Mole, one of our top mods, your prediction could be on. Is that everything's falling into place? You could be absolutely right. Maybe I don't think Man United will hit back so quickly.
Can Liverpool draw Man City in the next round?
That
There you
would
are,
be a
imagine.
dream.
Wow.
We said this on the loaded chat last night. If there was like a Man United Liverpool, and then to be fair, I said Arsenal, and I didn't even realize they'd been knocked out at that point. But if we had like a Man City Liverpool, and then there was like I can't remember who else is in there. It was like a Leicester, and who else was there that's in the cup? A Leicester or a Man United. I said at that point, but potentially a Villa. You take all those teams out. You look at the teams that are left. We wouldn't fear any of them. To be fair,
Is it fair to say, Pete? I mean, great point you made there. Like, I know, I can see why you've said it, but I know, like, we'd say, oh, Man U Liverpool will be a dream draw. I think I'd rather play Liverpool than most of the other teams.
Yeah,
because they're just they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not Man City. I wouldn't. Don't get me wrong. I don't want Man City, but Liverpool and Co. I think I'd rather play a Liverpool. I don't know what Nick thinks, but I think I'd rather play Liverpool at the minute than most teams because one, they'll play a weaker side because they've got to solely focus on Europe and solely focus on the league. And secondly, even if they do play a reasonably strong side, they're not playing well. So I wouldn't have anything to fear about them. I'd sooner play them than play a team who's got nothing to lose and really throws everything into the game.
Yeah, I will also say, I think literally, but next round of the Carabao draw is literally right after the World Cup as well. So Liverpool would be without most of their big guns anyway. But Klopp doesn't take that competition seriously. As I said, they scraped past Derby last night on penalties. He'll play probably, a bunch of kids and maybe Oxlade-Chamberlain and some other player that's somehow still there. But you'd fancy your boys. Obviously, if you put out a relatively strong side, and again, obviously, I don't know how many players you've got away World Cup, but I'd think just avoid Manchester City, and you've got as good a chance of anyone left in that competition, really. And obviously, then it just depends on, I guess, who you get, how many players they've got away. But yeah, you've got, as I said, that draw is really opening up for you boys.
Absolutely,
really is. And like I say, we're not even talking about the fact that ASM's not fit yet. We've got Isak coming back after the World Cup. Yeah. We've got the January window to improve players, bring players in from Europe. And we've got the money to spend. Like, there is a great opportunity there for us to really kick on in this cup, depending on the draw, which will be later on tonight. And Dark by Design asked, "Are we doing a watch along for the draw?" Look, we've gone on for quite a while now. I don't think I can do another 4-hour show like I did about a year ago. I mean, we could, but I don't think it'd be viable. Certainly not for me. But yeah, the draw will be coming through. I think it'd probably be best that we watch it separately. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. Dot by Design. Look, before we get to predictions, there's just some other little comments that I want to bring up. Simon's not happy with the intro. He wants the old tune back, and Daz has agreed and agree with that. I'll find a new tune before the next away day, so keep an eye out on that for our new tune. Gary asked the question: is that right, Fred of Manuel is in the Brazil squad? He is in the Brazil squad, but on top of that, he actually starts ahead of Bruno Guimaraes, which blows my mind. It is down to the fact that the manager and Fred have previous in terms of the club that I think they used to play for. Fred used to play for before. It's crazy that Bruno's going to the World Cup, but still not guaranteed to start. It baffles me. Fred has been absolutely shocking again tonight, awful. But yet he still gets in and starts on a regular basis ahead of Bruno Guimaraes. It's ridiculous. And then adding to that point, how the hell has he got picked ahead of J7, Joe Linton? Mind-boggling. I agree with you, Gary. Joe Linton should have been in the squad, and I do fully believe that he'll be in the squad after the World Cup. I think they'll look to move him forward and be part of the future of Brazil. There's a question here from Yano. How different would last season have been if Van der Beek had agreed to come on loan? He's absolutely dog. And you know what? It's a fantastic question. Nick, I want to get your opinions on Van der Beek as well, actually. But Chris, I'll come to you first. Keith, I'll come to you as well. Van der Beek, how different would it have been if he'd have come on loan?
2-2.
It'll go to
Rashford's just
penalties.
scored.
It'll go to penalties.
Yeah, we've got 24 minutes left to play, and Rashford's to score. Very sloppy from Villa. Don't know whether it was Tyrone Mings that fell on his arse, but somebody did. And then Rashford just came in, and was it Tyrone Mings? It looks from this angle like it's Tyrone Mings. Hang on. Yeah, he's on sides. That won't be ruled off. Oh, Tyrone Mings. Just watch Tyrone Mings there, Pete. I don't know if you're watching it.
Yeah, I'm watching.
Oh,
I'm
no.
slightly behind. I'm slightly behind. But look, it's Tyrone Mings. What do we expect? We said this 2 weeks
So
ago.
bad.
He's shocking.
This game is really bad. Oh, yeah, it's just yeah. To answer the Van der Beek question, I think Yana makes a great point. And now if we were offered Van der Beek now, we'd probably laugh and go, no thanks. But for me, if I'm being, if I'm trying to be fair, it's very hard to judge because I think Van der Beek playing under an Eddie Howe would be a different Van der Beek playing now under the likes of Ten Hag, and then before that Lampard. I think he'd be a different player. Obviously he did very well at Ajax, and who knows if he works hard and he's got the right attitude, Eddie Howe could have got a tune out of him. I don't know, but Yano's making a good point. Like I think if we got offered him now, we'd say thanks, but no thanks. But yeah, it's difficult to answer is what I'm saying. I'm probably being I'm trying to be fair and impartial, but that's my honest answer on that one.
Keith, what do you think?
There's a couple of points, things I'd like to say, but you think of some of the players that will link Newcastle in the January window, Dele Alli, Digne, and Van der Beek, not missed them. Didn't miss any of them at all. The fact they didn't end up with the town, and look at how they've done at their prospective clubs. In fact, yesterday I listened to a little bit one of the Everton shows just after the 4-1 drubbing last night at Bournemouth, just to see what they were saying, and they weren't very complimentary about Van der Beek at all when the short spell he was at Everton, really. And I'm inclined to agree. Is he one of these players that is really good in an Ajax team in the Dutch league and comes to the Premier League and doesn't really get the physicality and doesn't really time in? Because he has been at United for a while now. He was at Everton, maybe not the best situation at Everton or the best club to be at, but he's been at 2 clubs now and he's not really making the progression over, really. So I wouldn't take him. No, he doesn't improve Newcastle's side as far as I'm concerned.
And you've got to think who he's playing alongside as well. I mean, no disrespect, but if you've got Van der Beek next to Fred, or you've got Van der Beek next to Tom Davies, God forbid, it's like, it would be far easier for him, wouldn't it, playing alongside the likes of Joe Linton and Bruno? Far easier. So I do have sympathy for him there as well. I think I just look at his Ajax career and just think, well, Man United didn't sign him for all that money unless there was a player there. I struggle to just think he's absolute dog shit, as Yano says. He's been playing dog shit.
Brilliant side, wasn't it, Chris? That was a brilliant side, wasn't it? The Ajax time. The latter stage of the Champions League. You think of some of the players that have went on, to Barcelona and that from there.
Yeah. What was it? Frankie de Jong.
Frankie de Jong, yeah.
Frankie de Jong
De Ligt.
and
De Ligt as well.
De Ligt.
Yeah, De Ligt.
Tadic.
Nick, your opinions on Van der Beek?
Yeah, firstly, Daz in the comments, no, I've not gone to bed. I'm still here.
It's so hard to know. It's so hard to know because we haven't got the camera.
What's it? On Van der Beek, look, trust me, as a Chelsea fan, I know firsthand about signing a player from that Ajax 18-9 team and then 19 team and then not quite living up to the hype we got. It's one of those, going to United never made sense. They didn't need him in that team. Right. That signing made no sense anyway. The confidence kind of got wrecked. You then threw him into a situation at Everton, an Everton side battling relegation, which is literally just about results and nothing else really mattered. Again, that was a bad environment for him to be in. And then since then, he's not really had the opportunities. It's a tough one. He was a player who he's rated, did well at Ajax, but again, like Chris said, is just one of those Ajax, a team suited well for him. We saw Hakim Ziyech looked magnificent in that Ajax team. I saw him firsthand tear Chelsea to shreds in that 4-4 game at Stamford Bridge, and I was obsessed with him. And I was like, get me this man, please. And it's been 2 and a bit seasons, and I'm fed up with the bloke. And hopefully he's off in January, and he's just been one of the most underwhelming players I can remember. So it's one of those where I think ultimately that Ajax team just kind of did very well at that time. But also I think we do have to hold something against them if they, threw away a 3-0 lead on aggregate to Spurs of all teams. So I don't think you can necessarily take them that seriously. But no, that team was good. But no, I guess for you guys, I don't know whereabouts he would have fitted for Newcastle, but yeah, you certainly didn't miss out. You certainly, nothing to worry about not getting him, because you've gone from strength for strength. And I guess was it a question of between him and Bruno? I don't know, but if it was, then you certainly did well getting Bruno over him.
It better not been a question of those two, because, well, certainly we got the better deal on that. That is for sure. I don't think there's a question of who's better between the two players. But Donny van der Beek, he's under the manager that helped create him, and he's still not performing, which tells you everything you need to know about the player, in my opinion. But look, we're coming towards the end, and I want to get your predictions on the show. We've got 120 in the chat. We've had more than that over the course of the show. And thank you for tuning in and being a part of the show and getting your questions in. Some fantastic questions and contributions for both Lewis and Nick during the show. If you haven't already, click that like button, that thumbs up button. It means the world to us. Just click the button. It only takes a second. But it helps us raise the profile of the channel. We've already had another 10 subscribers today, so thank you for that and subscribing to the show. And of course, we'll do a little Chrissy Hall. Thank you for your likes and comments. As always, we really, really appreciate it. And we echo everything that Lewis said before he left the channel. The chat is by far the best out there. For any channel that I've certainly been on and been a part of. You guys really do make the Away Day show. We really, really do appreciate everything you do in terms of your questions and your contributions. So yeah, come and join the Loaded family, that is for sure. Moving towards predictions, but just before that, Yano had an opinion, said, seriously, think we can win the league? Interesting. Saying he's been saying it since the start of the season. We have limited World Cup involvement, no European football commitments, just need to avoid shitbags in the transfer window. And I think the shitbags refers to a certain player that plays for Leicester, in his opinion, that he doesn't want at the club, which is James Maddison. Russ agrees with him, by the way, in the chat. They don't want Maddison at the club. They don't want to sign Maddison. I know there's a lot of fans, including myself, that feel differently. I want to get your thoughts on this, Nick. Yano's come up with a big statement there about he feels that we could potentially win the league without our World Cup and European involvement and potential signings in the January. Do you think there's a chance, or do you think that's maybe one step too far?
Well, I mean, I've said I think you get Champions League football, so is it that outrageous to say you could win the league? Look, what I would say is Erling Haaland does not have the World Cup, and that almost feels unfair, but he just gets a month off and just gets to rest. And he could probably just go in some cryo chamber, just put him on ice, etc., just for a month, and then he just comes back and gets to run and bully tired defenses. That doesn't quite seem fair, and I do kind of look at it, and I think City and Arsenal probably right now are still just that bit too strong. And Arsenal obviously have gone out the Carabao Cup. They've got the Europa League wedge. They obviously came top. They don't have that knockout playoff round. They don't really have to take that competition too seriously till later. I mean, why not? I would say, though, I think, top four is, is certainly achievable. I think the league is maybe out of the stretch. And I guess as for his James Maddison opinion, James Maddison is probably my favourite player outside of the traditional top six. So, I mean, admittedly, I don't know how he necessarily fits into your Newcastle side. You know your team better than me. But if there's a role there for him, I think he's a brilliant player. And I think he's got, I think there was that Sky graphic the other week, some of the, most assists or goals, whatever, by a British player or whatever, behind where that very impressive number of goals and assists since the start of last season or this season or whatever. So no, he is a very, very good player, and I'm sure he would strengthen a lot of teams.
Interesting. Very interesting from a Chelsea perspective. Keith, I'll come to you. Do you think Jano's comments are a little bit wild? Jordy Toonful, I think so. He's put Jano stop drinking. In his opinions, would you agree with that, or actually do you think that Jano's comments are viable? Do you think we have the opportunity to push some of those top teams because of the fact of no or minimal World Cup involvement and no European involvement?
I'll go back to what Alan Thompson was saying earlier in the chat. Newcastle have got another good opportunity that's in Newcastle's favour for a really good season, is that they've played pretty much nearly all the top 6 away from home. So really there's like Arsenal to get out of the way. I think Chelsea will be to come later in the season, but there's a really good chance. I take on the views as well in terms of no European involvement. After this World Cup, there's going to be a fixture pile-up, isn't there? You're going to get the likes of United having to play 2-3 games a week, most weeks. So there's definitely a chance there. But I think really the Leicester season, if we use the Leicester season as an example, so many teams were off form that year. Man City were off form. That was awful. I think Leicester won their 3-1, didn't they? And Arsenal were really, they fell away. They were up there with Leicester, and then they fell away after the sort of January, after they sort of played each other and that. So at the minute, top 3 would be outstanding, wouldn't it? If they just stayed in that top 3, top 4, that would be amazing. There's time yet. We're going to strengthen from there, aren't we? Really, we're going to get stronger than we are. We're only 2 transfer windows in to this project, so there's time to think about the league later on, I think. And Haaland, I just do not see him. I can't see this City team without Haaland not winning the league. I think he's just smashing it, and I think give it a year or 2 when he gets bored, that's when Newcastle come in.
Oh dear. I think it's Man United that have scored to make it.
Most certainly is.
That's the Villa keeper.
Well, yeah, here's a question, lads. Are you becoming Villa converts or something? Is Villa your second team? Can you not remember the sub? Can you remember a sub on the time here?
I'm not happy about it.
What we're doing cheering on Villa here?
I'm not happy about it. I've got to be honest.
Is it Dubravka? Is it Dubravka? Is it Dubravka because he's in between the sticks tonight?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I want both teams out. I want them both out of the cup. Yeah. But if I was to choose one, I'd choose Man United because I genuinely think we can beat Man United. I think we can beat Villa, but I think we can beat Man United 110%. So yeah, I'm a bit annoyed by that.
Do you know what, Pete? I was just about to say. I think, and I didn't think I'd say this, but I think I would rather Man U go through tonight. Because I think Villa under Emery, they couldn't. Well, they can only improve based on where they've been, and I think with Man United as well, because I don't know, I feel like they won't see the Carabao Cup as a major trophy for them. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were to play a weaker side. Whereas Aston Villa will want to stay in this competition. So I think Man United going through would be a good thing. Like if we drew Man United at home tonight at 10:30, whenever the draw is, would everyone be happy? I'd be happy.
I would,
because I think we take them all day.
I want MK Dons, Chris.
Oh yeah. I mean,
yes.
yeah. Or Derby, yeah.
Definitely. But look, let's wrap this up. Wrap up the show because it's been a really, really good show. Great points from Lewis in the beginning. Really, really appreciate Nick fighting through the elements with regards to technology to be on the show tonight. It's been brilliant to hear your perspective on various things. Look, I'm going to come to predictions. Okay,
Pete. Just before you do, I was just going to say, just before you do. I'm going to stick up for my mate Jano here because Jano's getting a lot of grief in the chat here, over like the winning the league and all stuff like that. And I think it's a good shout. Do I think we will win it? Probably not. But when you look at the league table, you've got the top 3: Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle. We've got the joint best defensive record.
Mhm.
All three of us have only lost one game.
Yeah.
So you can see why we're in that conversation. And if we carry on playing the way we're playing, like even last night, we played against Palace, weaker side, managed to, get through the tie. But from what I heard, I didn't watch the game because I couldn't find a stream.
They had one chance.
Yeah. I just think, there's no reason why we can't. And really, you can understand why people are saying this, because based on what we've been seeing week in, week out, 4 goals here, 5 goals there, 4 goals here, 3 goals there, we're looking really, really good. It's whether or not we can maintain it. We probably can't, but I can see why Yano's saying it.
Yeah.
That's it then, Chris, isn't it? League and Cup double now, isn't it? You've got
Well,
the
that's it
same.
now, yeah.
Oh, we're going to be held to that. That is for sure. But look, Chris, I'm going to come to you with your prediction at 7:30 on Saturday evening. What do you think the score is going to be? Newcastle versus Chelsea under the lights at St James's Park.
Yeah. Well, that last part you just mentioned there, Pete, I think that's key to the tie. Chelsea on the back of a couple of tough results. I don't know. I'm going to say 2-1. I think we'll win 2-1. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think we'll to use a Pardew expression, I think we'll get it over the line. I think we'll scrape past, and I think it'll be 2-1, but it'll be tight. But yeah, I think we'll win.
Interesting. Very interesting. Keith, I'm going to come to you next. Again, what do you think the score's going to be come 7:30 Saturday evening?
Under the lights at St James's Park evening game. I think this is going to be a fervent atmosphere. It could be similar to the Arsenal game at the end of last season with war flags and everything. Remember that atmosphere and remember the mosaics and everything in the crowd and what was created, the noise. It could be the same just before, this end to a mini part of the season, the midway point of the season. It could be a right cracker of a game. That being said, I think it's going to be quite tight. Certainly there's been a lot of common sense from the Chelsea fans tonight, from Lewis and from Nick. It could be a set piece either way that wins it. It could be, or a penalty that wins it. But I'm going with the fact that, my head is saying 1-1, but I might be leading with my heart here because it's been a long time since a win against Chelsea. I think this could be a 1-0 to Newcastle just before the World Cup.
Keith.
Off the fence again.
Fell off
the fence.
Right, Nick, you won't know this, but Keith, in his predictions, is always on the fence. It's always a draw or a pessimistic result away from Newcastle. In the last few weeks, he's been off the fence. And to be fair, he's actually been on point. So, a really interesting take from Keith. And look, we love off the fence, Keith. We need to get that hashtag.
Hey, get it on a t-shirt, but we've got a World Cup. We've got now to lose. We're in 3rd place. We're top 4 for Christmas.
Yeah.
Go for the win.
Simon in the chat, top sponsor, mod, off the fence, Keith. Let's get the shirt made. I'll buy one.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, I'll buy
Absolutely.
one. Off the fence,
Absolutely.
Keith.
Yeah.
Let's get it done. Let's get
Picture
it done.
of a fence, Keith's face, tuxedo, done.
Let's get
There
it
you go.
done.
There you go.
I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
Yeah.
I'm repping it with away days. Let's get it done. Simon, you know what to do. Nick, last but not least, from a Chelsea perspective, Lewis earlier on said he felt like in a Chelsea perspective, it could be a Jorginho penalty, a 1-0 potential win. He did also think that it could be, a Newcastle 2 or 3-0 from a Newcastle perspective. What are your thoughts with regards to the game on Saturday? What do you think the result will be?
Well, I'm just going to say, whatever happens, it can't be any worse than losing in the 96th minute to an Isaac Hayden header like we did a few years ago. That is probably one of the worst defeats that I can remember because
that was
so
the last
dominant.
time Newcastle won, and it was the last time they won under night lights in an evening game as well.
Yeah, that we were pretty dominant, albeit didn't do much with it, and then we conceded a set piece in injury time in the last minute. So nothing can be worse than that. Honestly, even trying to be optimistic, I can't see a win. Optimistically, I'd say we could get a 1-1 draw. But honestly, I could see this being a 2-0 or 3-1 Newcastle win. The way Newcastle are, this was one of those games where I'm just never confident for Newcastle away. As I said earlier, we don't have a great record, despite the fact it has been a little while since we beat you, but we don't do great away at Newcastle. So I've got to say a 2-0 or 3-1 Newcastle win, to be honest.
Jesus.
Wow.
Wasn't expecting
Okay.
that.
I think you're Nick. I've got to be honest. I think you're the first opposition fan.
Is that bad? Is that
No. I'm just saying.
to predict a loss.
It's your opinion.
Oh,
I think you're the first fan though that hasn't gone their own way. I mean, we had Mike on last week that was a Southampton fan that even though they've gone through their worst period, he still had Southampton to win.
All right, yeah. To quote MJ from No Way Home, expect disappointment and you can never really be disappointed. It's a decent mantra to have, and it's Newcastle away. I don't expect anything. To be brutally honest, whatever happens at 7:30, whether after 7:30, Sadie, I will be celebrating because I don't have to watch Chelsea play for over a month. So whatever happens, I'll be in a good mood.
That is true. Look, there's lots of predictions coming through. Lots of appreciation for 007, 00 Stato, Keith. Let's get that shirt printed. It only makes sense. Look, as well as that, Chris, there's a number of tagged or starred comments. I'll just throw them up really quickly.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Doug the Toon, 2-1 to the Toon. Bobby, 2-1 win, reminiscent of the Arsenal win in May. Interesting. Tom Dixon goes 1-0. And then he's altered it and gone 1-0 Almiron. We've got Jordy 2 for life. Tim's is on a repeat 1-1. Woodeye is gone for 2-0. Jordy 2 for life gone for a Keith special, but it's not a Keith special, not anymore. Interesting one there. 1-1. Russ has gone for a 3-1. From a Newcastle point of view, we also have 2Coin has put add the VAR points, and we might unofficially win it. There were some interesting ones there that one or two that I've put in there. Daz has put, if this game goes to penalties, we might be here at 11 o'clock. You might be here, Daz. I'm definitely not going to be here at 11 o'clock. And it looks like at this point in time, it's not going to be going to penalties. At 87 minutes, it's 3-2. Although there's been a gasp there, and I'm hoping it's not a goal.
But McTominay nearly made it 4-2. He just hit the crossbar.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Gary's gone for 4-0. Jordan Flash gone for 1-1. Maguire has been dreadful. Daz has gone 1-1. 1-1 win for the two. Interesting on that.
Quick question, Pete. Say that prediction was right. Say it was 4-0. Say we beat Chelsea 4-0. Would Janu's question be as absurd? If we were beating the likes of Chelsea 4-0? Would then people start going, plus, yeah, we could win the league?
I think the question starts to be talked about more.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we delve into it as a loaded channel in the World Cup break. I think we would look into that a little bit more. It'll be more talked about that it's a viable 30 points after 15 games. Who would have thought that? For me, if we get 30 points after 15 games, that's halfway to Europe in any competition, in my opinion. So that takes us halfway there. So
you're averaging 2 points a game, aren't you?
We cannot then at that point not talk about Europe. We have to talk about Europe at that point. So I completely understand what you're saying there, 110%. But look, just
4-2.
Oh, 4-2.
4-2, and it was McTominay.
For God's sake, Chris, why did you say it? Why did you say it?
Yeah.
What I want to say is, if you haven't already, and we put this earlier on in the show, go to this GoFundMe site, check the details here in the chat, This is Simon's. Check out the Hats for Homeless, organised by Simon Rudd, a fantastic cause to support all those that might be suffering or struggling over the winter months. Simon has done a lot of work, an incredible amount of work to put this together to support and help. So if you can go to the GoFundMe site and donate as much as you possibly can, anything, no matter how big or small, it means the world. So please support Simon in his push for the GoFundMe chat. The Hats for the Homeless, like I say, it makes a massive difference to those that are suffering over the winter months. So I had to plug that out again. Make sure that you go to that if you haven't already and support Simon and all the fantastic work that he does with the channel, but also with Shyburns and the Hats for Homeless. So thank you very much, Simon, for your contributions from that perspective. And of course, we have to say thank you to the sponsors. Simon at www.shyburns.com. Make sure you go out and go into the website and check out the fantastic gear that is available from Simon. Please remember, it's Mental Health Awareness Month this month, the month of November. So it's a perfect opportunity to recognise all the work that's been done across the country with regards to mental health. Show your support. Mental health, it's not a secret, it's not a dirty secret. It's there to be supported, and send a message to your friends. Check in on people that you wouldn't normally check in on. It makes a difference. Just sending that message could potentially save a life and could potentially make a difference to someone's day. So it makes a huge difference within that. Lots and lots of gear and tops available that's supporting mental health and everything that's available with that. And of course, we show support from Simon's website with regards to away days. And I'm wearing the shirt right now, the Brazilian Bruno Guimaraes shirt that supports all things Shyburns. And there is a new set of gear available: the hoodies, the hats, the top hats as well, which is fantastic. And the bobble hats, that bobble hat looks absolutely class, by the way.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Definitely going to get involved in that for sure. So the new range is available from Shyburns. So get involved in all things Shyburns for the winter. Pins and prints, of course, fantastic pins and prints. Massive support. So thank you for everything that you do for the Loaded Mag NUFC channel. Machine House and their gear, their new gear is up and available. You can see some of the gear right there, and some of their classic gear, their vintage gear that's been around for a while. Absolutely top stuff. Support Marty and the website and get your gear from Machine House. And of course, Dean. Massive thanks to Dean, the Geordie Rise, for all your support with the channel. You can see Uggy supporting and showing off the gear in the pictures. Get your Geordie Rise gear from here. We are massive supporters of the website, of course, and the Radiator Shed. We've got Russ in the house tonight. Thank you for your contributions as a new sponsor already. We've got Keith back in the jailhouse again, along with Nick, but Nick, we can't see Nick in the jailhouse. Thank you for all your support with that. And of course, we have the Radiator Shed, Northeast-based company across most of the regions in the UK, building associations with Age UK, delivering direct, including price to mainland UK. They provide top quality materials made from plate steel, providing longevity. All designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and perfect for heat source pumps. They offer a home survey service and will install if required. And there are various different types of rads that are available. So please get involved and show your support for that. We are so close to 5K, nearly at 250 away from 5K. So show your support. If you've not already, click that subscribe button. Please do. We are looking for that 5K to push further forward. And if you're not a member, click on, and you have to do it through a laptop, not a phone. click that blue button, $1.99 a month. Show your support and join the Loaded family as a member. A prize draw will be coming very, very soon, and it will definitely be in the works. So show your support from that perspective as well. And of course, thank you everyone in the chat tonight for your support with all things away days. We really, really do appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us that you are taking the time to support away days and looking at the preview game for the weekend. Nick, thank you so much. I've said it 3 times tonight, but I really do mean it. Your technical issues meant that you've not been able to be on from a camera point of view, but your contributions have been massively appreciated along with Lewis's. So thank you for taking the time for joining us tonight.
Cheers for having me on, guys. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been, I do a few away preview shows on various platforms, etc. But this has probably been the most fun I've had doing one in a long time. All a bunch of great guys. The chat as well was great. And look, I know Lee said, love to hear you again, reverse fixture. I'm sort of inviting myself on here again. But if you would like me on, feel free, drop a message, and hopefully next time the camera will be working, because it's been an absolute pleasure going on with you guys. And I said, anyone in the chat, make sure you subscribe to them. Really enjoyed the show tonight, guys. It's been really good fun. And yeah, all the best for the rest of the season.
Nick, an absolute pleasure to have you on. And look, we're very open and welcoming a channel, as is Loaded Mag NUFC. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Of course, you're more than welcome to come back on for the return fixture, and we'll be in touch. We'll be plugging your channel, Chelsea pod, in the next day or two with all the promotion that we'll put out there. So please, feel free to like and retweet anything that we put out with regards to that. We'll definitely be in touch. Best of luck for the season after Saturday. Yep. I'm sure you guys will be absolutely fine. But we'll definitely get you back on camera and all moving forward. Keith, as a stat man, you are the very, very best. There's no one better than you, and your stats tonight prove it. And it's great to have you part of the channel and a part of the show. Thank you always for your support. And Blaze, the Brandy and Blaze trio managed to the duo, should I say, managed to connect again for a short period. Great to have you on as always, top man. And I'm sure we'll be back talking more things Newcastle United over the week. The chat has to get the special mention. You guys make this show. You really, really do. Lewis said it before. Nick said it again. Really, really appreciate all your support. You are such a great chat. The questions, the respect, the knowledge makes the Away Day show what it is. So thank you very, very much for all of your support from that perspective. And of course, before we go, we do love playing away. Thank you very much. Pray, fingers crossed for 3 points. And look, I don't normally come out with this, but let's go out with it anyhow.